Hey.
Hey, good
How's
evening,
it?
everybody. Welcome to CrowCast episode 16. Incredible. Tonight we're joined by the wonderful Toby Jepson. We're going to do a similar sort of format we did last week. Anybody that joined us last week. So we're going to get the guest on ASAP, and then we'll get the rest of the crows on and talk at the garbage and shit for the rest of the night. Sounds like a good plan.
Sounds like a plan, mate.
How's it going, bud? How have you been?
It's been a really good week. A lot of great news in the camp. We're a little bit behind, as everybody kind of listening to this knows, in Wales. On Monday, we were able to travel. We can travel wherever we want now, which is pretty good. So we're still kind of staying safe. We're still staying alert. But it was definitely great news. And then obviously the band, we had a lot of meetings, a lot of news in that camp as well, didn't we, mate?
Yes. Obviously then that was announced on Facebook and stuff. Obviously the Planet Rock one in particular, Rock's the Asylum. It's going to be the first one back for the Crows, along with Stone Broken and Massive Wagons. There it is. Check it out. It's a funny one, really, because we initially said no to this, if we're completely honest. Not because we didn't want to do it. We desperately wanted to do it. But like Ronnie said, Wales was a bit behind, so we couldn't get rehearsal rooms. And we haven't done anything together for 4 months. So it was like, oh, should we do it? Shouldn't we do it? And we've just gone, yeah, let's go and do it. Let's go and rock out in a room, because we haven't done that in God knows how long. So we're just gonna give it a go. But
Oh man, it was a breath of fresh air. But when we had the initial meeting with management and they said about it, it's exactly like you said. Our heart was in playing. It was just our circumstances. We didn't know whether we could kind of join all the dots. And we're still, if we're being honest, we're still trying to work a lot out behind the scenes of what we can make happen. And, because we're still under a lot of restrictions in Wales at the moment. So we're working night and day at the moment. It's been a real busy couple of days, haven't it? Just trying to kind of make sure everything goes over the line. But when we knew, it was like everybody was on board and it was a yes. It was just a fact of we get to jam in a room together, and that's pretty special, man. I mean, it's been 3 months. It's been since February, that's a long time,
Yeah, I know. And as soon as I saw the poster, it was like, oh, we can't say no now. That's it. We're done. Like, we're in. So it is a bit daunting, because we haven't we haven't done anything. But the thought of performing just outweighed all the other stuff, really. We're just like, oh, we gotta do it. This is a chance to do it, and God knows when the next one's gonna be. So we're excited. We're buzzed to have Stone Broken and Massive Wagons at the Asylum in Birmingham, and having all you CrowFamily I can see in the corner of the side there, with all your messages. What a night that's going to be. It'll be different. It'll be really different, but at least there's live music.
And it makes sense now as well. Obviously we do a lot of posts on our stories and Twitters and stuff like that. Why the sudden urge to start running up mountains and not eating Doritos, and it's a sad time, Shane. The cooking, the bake-offs have stopped.
The drinking has stopped, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm devastated. So
well, yeah,
I've got to lose 3 stone in 20 days, basically. So I've started, and I'm not in a good mood. I'm not in a good place. I'm not in a good mood. I'm ready to blow. I'm not gonna lie. I'm on 3 diets, because this performance is all that matters. So, and the thing is with me, as you know, as soon as I do something, I'm in 100%. So the past, I don't know, 4 or 5 days, I've been watching what I'm eating. No drink, no sugar, and my body's like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" But it's got to be done. Got to be done for the performance.
It was a weird one Saturday, because we've said many weeks on you. Me and you get together with friends and family, and we have a bit of a drink on a Saturday night and a quiz that's kept us entertained for the last 16 weeks. And this Saturday was funny because everybody went, "What are you drinking?" And I I almost wanted you to go first, so I kind of give a fibber first. I was like, well, I got a whiskey, which I just kind of poured just to kind of look cool. And then he went, well, I'm on the water. I went, oh, well, I'm on the water too. And then, sorry, I had the red cup with lemon in it. And yeah, it's just a wake up call, man. Like I said, my life has been talking to you about let's get the merch sorted, and then we're getting the CrowCast doing. We have weekly kind of meetups with the boys, you know, how's things going, and then now it's all of a sudden it's full boot camp, isn't it? Like, you know, it's right, wicked. Use a set list. What is that going to work? No, let's maybe try this. Let's maybe try that. And it's exciting times, man. That's well, we weren't in that position last week. That's the truth, isn't it? Like, you know, so
No, that's right. And it's almost hit us like by surprise. Because it was kind of last minute. As we said no, so we're like, oh, okay, we can relax. We're not going to be doing anything. But then we kind of confirmed it, and it was like, oh no, battle stations now. Now we got to get prepared. And yeah, I think this might be the first sober CrowCast as well. So
chin chin.
Cheers, old boy.
Chin chin. Nah, it's all worth it. Like I said, I can't wait to
it really is,
to get in a room with you guys. And it's really, really nice to be able to do something as a band. Because like I said, you've been able to do the covers. We've been doing a bit of writing, so there has been music going on, but I mean, you're the only one who've really been active out the band to be able to put some covers up as well, which has been great. But as a band, I've been biting at the bit, mate, just to get something going, just to try and, you know, and we just haven't had that we haven't been able to do it. There's been no way. I think we've gone through every platform, every kind of software, trying to work out how we could do a virtual jam live, because that was a big part of it. We wanted to do it live, and yeah, it's just been an absolute nightmare. Like,
and now we've gone and done it with lots of people watching.
Yeah,
genius. It's the only way to do it.
Exactly. 5 HD cameras.
Yeah.
Good God, I'll be running up that mountain 3 times next week.
Mate, honestly, I forgot how, like, I was the mad thing is, at the start of lockdown, I was doing all that. My brother was like a personal trainer. I was with him doing it every morning, bang bang bang, and then kind of, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 weeks into lockdown, he was just like, what's the point? And for me, I've got to have a reason to do something. I got to be motivated. And I was like, well, we're not going to be playing live music till God knows the end of the year, hopefully. So there was no point. And now I've done some sort of exercise this week. God alive. But it's painful, honestly.
Yeah.
So much so that I was doing it this morning, and my youngest, he could hear me panting. He came running in the room. Are you okay, Dad? Yeah, I'm fine. Just doing exercise. I was in a right mess. A sweaty mess.
Yeah, I've been there. I told you about the other day. I put a little video up where we're really blessed where we live. We've got some incredible views. We've got the beach 20 minutes away, which is brilliant. You've got Ogmore by Sea, Southern Down. And then we got Puthcall the other end. And then we're surrounded by beautiful mountains, forestries. So I really, really made the most of that this week. And my boy, he put me through the drill, mate. Like I said, 2 hour, 20-minute hike up the mountains. It was great. It was the joy of finishing it and collapsing in the house was ecstatic. Like, you know what I mean? But it's all worth it because now I'm getting on the drums. You know, you're not puffing, and you can kind of feel you're not rushing through the songs. You're feeling it, you know, because like you said before lockdown, we were playing football on a Sunday. We just come off a tour. You know, I was eating a lot better. I mean, when we're on the road, I do seem to, when you can, which is an hard thing, you do eat a little bit better because when you're at home and you're comfortable, there's nothing better for me than to sit down, watch Netflix and, you know, binge watch with, like I said, some Doritos or some chocolate, like, you know, so, but 14, 15 weeks, 16 weeks of that is a bit, oof, good God.
Absolutely mad. But there we are. We're doing it for a good cause, a good reason, just to play music again and have the wonderful Crow family join us. It's going to be killer. It's going to be killer.
Yes. Have you got some birthdays and shout outs, mate?
Yes. There's quite a few birthdays, actually. So let's, where are they to? Here they are. We're going to start off. Michael Bruce got in touch. and asked if we could give a birthday shout out to his wonderful wife, Alison. It's her birthday today. He goes on to say, my wife and I, sorry, are both big Crow fans and haven't missed a CrowCast yet. Thanks for keeping us entertained. That's awesome. Thank you so
Happy
much, guys.
birthday.
Happy birthday, Alison. I hope Michael spoiled you rotten. Let us know. Another one here. Happy birthday, Laura Jones. Her birthday's on Saturday the 11th. Happy birthday, lovely.
Happy
Saturday.
birthday.
We've also got happy birthday to Karen Walker for yesterday. That's from your daughter Kate and husband Ross. Happy birthday, Karen.
Happy
I saw some
birthday.
photos of Karen up on Instagram. She was looking mighty fine. She's a very cool woman. Happy birthday to Aaron Carnes Hamilton. He is 8 on July the 10th. That's from your Uncle Chris and all your family. Happy birthday, Aaron.
Happy birthday, dude.
8. Loves the Crows, apparently.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, man. I love all that. Happy birthday for tomorrow, Morag Farley.
Oh, Morag, love.
Charlie got in touch to tell us that he's going to spoil you rotten tomorrow and to prepare yourself for a huge surprise. Is he dressing up again?
I don't know.
Again?
It worries me with Charlie. Like, good God. Happy birthday, Morag, love.
So, Morag, let us know what he's got you. Big surprise. It's in capital letters. That's how big a surprise it is. Big surprise. I don't know what that means. And what we got here? Happy birthday, Ollie Huxford. That's Ronnie's boy. It's his birthday on Sunday the 12th. He'll be 14. Oh, how's that feel, bud?
Incredible, mate. It's flying, isn't it? It's unbelievable.
It is ridiculous.
Yeah, I get about 3 words out of him a week, and he's a gamer, so it's a great relationship. Yeah. But he is starting to drift into music, which is cool, Shane. That's a good thing now, like, you know.
Oh, that's brilliant, bud. That's brilliant. My youngest, saying about music, I kind of opened his mind to the Ramones. And his favorite song, this is brilliant. Biscuit Bob.
Yeah.
That's what he calls it.
Biscuit Bob.
Yeah. It's incredible. He goes around the house with his guitar that I got him. And he just, hey, oh, and then Biscuit Bob. It's class. Yeah. So it's going to be known as Biscuit Bob from now on. We got some shout outs as well. We got Dean and Margaret Wood. That's Lloyd's parents. It's their 38-year wedding anniversary on Friday. That's a hell of an innings, isn't it? 38 years.
Amazing.
Happy anniversary, both. That's incredible.
Well done, guys.
That's all we got, bud. That's all we got.
Absolutely smashing. Should we bring in a guest?
Oh, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Toby Jepson.
Oh.
Hello.
Hey, yes, technology works.
How's it going? How are we?
Not too bad. You look well.
Yeah, feeling good.
You coping with all this madness?
Yeah, I think so. It's been challenging, hasn't it? But I think when I look back on this period, it'll be a period of rebirth. I think is the probably the best way of describing it. You know, pushed into a bit of a corner with everything, of course, like we all have, and it's just I think you either sink or swim, don't you? You got to get off your ass and do something about it, and be positive and make waves and create and do all that sort of good stuff, and forget all the rest of it, you know. So that's what I've been doing. I've never worked too hard, to be honest.
Yeah, you've been super busy, haven't you? You know, with all your sort of live, sort of in the kitchen and what have you.
Yeah,
I tuned in and watch it. It's wicked, mate. Yeah,
no, it's been great fun. I mean, you know, I'm a bit of a Luddite when it comes to technology, being a man of a certain age. But I think, you know, you're a fool if you don't realize that the world is changing around you, and you've got to change with it. You know, that's the whole principle. I mean, I've been in this game over 30 years now, and I've seen a lot of changes. But this is the biggest ever. I mean, I think our business and our industry suffering massively at the moment, you know, and we've got to all pull together. You know, you've got to make it a good thing. You know, you've got to look at what, I mean, for me, what it's all been about, boys, is just rediscovering the music and actually stop thinking about the stuff that, not that I ever really did. I've never been one to be interested or concerned about the window shopping of this business. I'm interested in the music only, you know. But I think this period's been great at that. It's been able to focus on precisely just the songwriting and the music, and looking what to do next and how to approach it and how you can best use the tools you've got at your fingertips, you know.
Yeah, I've always been personally, I've been captivated by some of your Facebook live streams when you did like lightning in a bottle, or you've always been transparent and open about the changes in the industry. And like you just said, now 30 years in the industry, you've watched so many changes, and honestly, you think this is because I've heard some of the stuff you've said in the past about, like, obviously the dangers of the split with Europe, and I took on board a lot what you said there. The streaming and how it's changed, and being creative, and bands not being so lazy and expecting it to come to them. So it was really cool when you just turned around and said that this has been the biggest, probably the biggest change for you personally, like, you know.
I think it's been the biggest change for us all. I mean, any musician that hasn't grasped the concept of you need to move online, I mean, you know, it is going to be left behind. I mean, the reality is that we're not going to be playing live shows in the way that we understand what live shows are for well over a year. I mean, still, you know, the news isn't great, you know. And I think there's going to be a lot of reluctance of audiences to a certain degree. I mean, you know, how many venues are going to be left at the end of all this? I mean, I hate to be completely dour about it, but it's the truth, and we have to face these things. And so what I say, you got to look at what you got left. You know, what do you have? What is this business all about? Well, as far as I'm concerned, this business is only about one thing, and that's about creating great music and writing great songs. And I think the trouble is perhaps what's happened in the past, and I think maybe what's great about this situation, because we've kind of hit the reset button, right? Is that there's been a lot of emphasis on things that I don't think matter. I don't think things like having a great looking website ultimately at the end of the day really matter if your songs aren't great. You know, I think, you know, I mean, I produce a lot of bands. I spend a lot of time with youngsters, and, you know, it's the biggest challenge is to sort of ask them what they've actually got to say. You know, what is your music saying? What are you bringing? What are you contributing to the art world? What is that stuff? What is the point of you doing this? You know. And I think the trouble is the industry has moved away from the sort of like the initial, the original blueprint, which was, you know, I mean, for me, look at me when I started out back in the 80s, a long time ago, chaps. You know, it was all about, you know, getting out of the small town. It was all about having, you know, having a voice and challenging authority, and you know, and using rock and roll as a speech of freedom, and as a march for freedom, and to generate a feeling of community. And I think a lot of the time over the last certainly over the last 20 years, that's been eroded. I think it's become a business. Well, actually, you know, rock and roll was anti-establishment. That's what it was all about. It was out of the streets, out of the back doors, out of the garages, onto the streets, talking about something that mattered about your generation. And I think that's been eroded. I think it's now become a business. People think about the business more than they do about the art, and that's a massive mistake in my view. Get the art right, everything else follows, you know. And so I think this is a good reset. I think every musician should look at themselves and go, well, what am I actually contributing here? You know, what do I have actually to say that brings me out and gives me a voice and brings some positivity, you know. So yeah, I think it's been a challenge, but, you know, I think it's ultimately this is what we have to do, you know.
100%, mate. You're absolutely right. I mean, your mindset is bang on there. You will get left behind if you don't take advantage of. It's not a good thing. You're absolutely right. But if you're sitting there, you will get lost. You've got to react to the situation. Not just wait until when it's all fine again. Like you said, it could be a long old time.
Well, the world doesn't work like that, does it? The world doesn't wait for anybody. You know, the reality is that I think the trouble with modern society is that we become far too comfortable. I think we expect there's a massive amount of kind of, you know, just expectation, you know, entitlement. You know, I think that's a big problem, and art doesn't allow that really. Art is supposed to react to these things. You know what I mean? You shouldn't be a question of, I'm just going to carry on the status quo, carry on as doing exactly what we should do. No, you know, the reality is that great art is a reaction to the times and reaction to to your own personal situation in those times, and wanting to try and promote, especially in rock and roll. Rock and roll has always been at the forefront of the freedom movement. That's what it's always been about, you know. It's not sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Actually, the reality is that's a bit of a smokescreen. The reality is underneath it. There is some real stuff there. There is some substance, and so there should be. You know, the bands that we all love, that we all still cite as, you know, as the greatest bands of all time. The reason why we do is because they had substance and they had a long game, and it was something that was about them for you know, for their lives. It was their lives on show, and I think that's what you need to grasp. And so you need to that has to be there anyway, and then the technology is there to aid that. That's the way I look at it. You know, I might be totally wrong, boys. What can I tell you?
No, mate.
No,
You
no,
know, it's exactly how we see it. The minute this happened, I mean, we just had an album out. We just done our first UK tour. Things were going well, the charts and stuff, and then the world stopped. And we could have quite easily have just done nothing, but we just
that's it.
react with the CrowCast. The fans have been incredible with us. It was about giving back to them. What can we do to entertain them? It was just always constantly thinking, and we still got lots of things in the pipeline that we haven't brought to the table yet. But we will. Lots of ideas and lots of things. You're right. It's constant. The world is constantly changing, so you have to adapt.
Yeah. And you know, it's just a great opportunity to focus on your writing. I think. I mean, I keep saying this to people. You know, this is the time to reflect. This is the time to really dig in and create some great work, because you've got no distractions. There isn't the thing about, oh, we got a gig next week. You know, well, these don't have to be negatives. These can be positives. You know, and I sort of fast settled into the concept. I mean, because, you know, look at WAYWARD SONS. We were due to do our second headline tour on our second record in April. You know, and it was like, no, that's not happening. You know. You know, but I didn't react to that and go, oh, damn it, you know. What I did was I go, okay, right. So what can we do? Yeah. What is the process? Okay, how do we move forward? Because we're all in this. We're all in this. No one's got an advantage. You know what I mean? We're a community of musicians, and you know, and I love new music, and I love new bands, and I love the whole concept of rock and roll, and I still do, always have done. A massive part of that for me is about the community. I mean, you mentioned the fans there. I think this is amazing what you guys are doing, and I think you're doing it absolutely right, and you're giving quality, you're giving a connection, and that's what I've always believed. You know, it's an old cliche, but fans are nothing without the fans. As simple as that. You know, if you don't have fans, you have nothing. Simple as.
100%. And the way you describe that as a reset, it's not just like the industry reset. I think people now have realized they took things for granted, you know. Totally. Live music in particular, how important mentally, you know, like mental health is a big thing right now, and music is a huge outlet for that. And now they can't go and see their favorite acts. So it's almost resetting their focus and realizing that when this comes back around again and it's good, I think there'll be a real upsurge, hopefully, in the music, how the business is being run, and hopefully it'll thrive again. But
yes, I absolutely couldn't agree more. This is a phenomenon. You know, I mean, viruses aren't anything new. You know, the last virus of this nature of any, you know, this scale was the Spanish flu back in 1918, which decimated the world. 50 million people died. We can't take this lightly. You know, and I grow tired of people constantly trying to say it's some kind of you know, conspiracy or nonsense like that. And I know people who have died of this virus, you know, and anyone that takes it lightly is a fool. There's very famous quotes from the period of the 1918 pandemic about people returning to the pubs, and how everyone thought it was all okay too quick, and they had the second spike, which was 4 months after the initial spike, and that killed the majority of people. You know, so we can't take this lightly. You know, and I refuse to. You know, indulge people that believe that, you know, this is something that's happening to the world, and it's a fundamental problem. And so, yeah, I hope that I genuinely do hope that people are sat in their houses, and that they've had time to reflect upon themselves and the way that they conduct themselves, and the way that they, you know, the way that they work, and the way that they play, and can take a long hard look. I mean, I think, you know, what can you remember a time, the last time anywhere in the world everyone had 3 months off, right?
No.
Where you sit around, and all you could do all you could do is look at yourself and go, because you know we all do that. We all go away for 2 weeks on a holiday, whatever, and you kind of start at the end of that 2 weeks, perhaps reassessing some aspects of your life. You know, I have with all those conversations around the pool in Spain somewhere with your missus. When we get home, love, I'm going to convert that garage. I'm selling the car and I'm getting a pair of roller skates or whatever, right? Yeah. We all say this shit, don't we? We all bollocks. But the reality is, we've had 3 months to think this stuff out, and I think there's no excuse. The amount of times I've been seeing people, you know, working in their gardens and, you know, painting their houses and stuff like that. Well, that's all part and parcel of the need for humans to do stuff, isn't it? And be positive. You know, that's what it ultimately comes down to. So I genuinely hope that people have been able to look at that and reflect upon their lives and make some changes for the better and reevaluate the way. I actually think one thing else about community. Again, the whole aspect of community. You know, how do you deal with your neighbours? How do you deal with your friends? How can we go forward? How can I improve myself? You know, that's what I hope. I mean, I don't know whether whether that's in reality going to happen, but I really hope so.
Toby, one of my good friends moved to Swindon many years ago, and I have seen him more weekly on Zoom because we do a Zoom meetup and we do quizzes and stuff like that. It's been phenomenal because the connection's there. I went out for a walk the other day, and I've been living where I have for 14 years, and it's the first time that every time I pass somebody, everybody had the time to say morning. Yeah. Or how are you doing? Everything okay? And I was like, wow, I haven't seen that since I was a kid. And that's the genuine truth. I grew up in a very, you know, a street that did parties, celebrated people's birthdays, always looked in on each other, left the doors open. Everything was great when we grew up because me and Shane lived pretty close to each other. And it's the first time I've actually seen a slice of that humanity where it's just that time to say how are you doing rather than walking straight past somebody. Or it was really nice. It was refreshing.
And not surprising, because ultimately, you know, we've had so many distractions, and you know, the modern living is such that people, I think we all are guilty of just feeling content, you know, and I think that's not, and of course that's fantastic that we all feel content, but what I mean is there's a sense of kind of acceptance of the situation, and we're all very indulgent. We're all very selfish, really, ultimately, when it comes down to it. And I think the thing is, this situation has caused people to take stock, especially if you know people that have, like I have, you know, that have passed away because of the virus, and you know, and suffered because of it, or they've got family members or whatever, and the reality hits home that this is not normal. You know, the reality is we're just very frail creatures. I mean, humans are not, you know, we're not infallible. You know, I think it's a case of that. Those sorts of things are really important to realise. I mean, it's interesting to note that after if you've read anything about the 1918 pandemic, and also if you go back to when Samuel Pepys was talking about the Black Death way back, you know, in sort of 16th century, you know, the results were the same. Is that there was a kind of outpouring of human need after the years of going through it and the processing of all that. I mean, it took nearly 2 years for the Spanish flu to fully be eradicated, and it disappeared quite quickly. But then we had the Roaring Twenties, and the interesting thing was the Roaring Twenties were a direct result of this upsurge of the need for positivity, and it was only the sort of Second World War that interrupted that process. Very, very interesting about the way that the world reacted in a positive way to it, is what I'm trying to say. There was a great change in the air, and I hope that's the way that we react here as well. Maybe different, of course, but I genuinely hope my dad always used to say the real people that are in control are the silent majority. And I think that's you, me, and every normal person out there that believes in having a good life and being good to others, you know?
Absolutely.
Spot on.
Couldn't agree anymore. So let's talk about Mr. Toby Jepson.
We after?
Yeah. So when did it start for you, Toby? What age were you when music kind of grabbed hold of you? Who was the artist that made you kind of think, I want to do that, or I want a piece of that?
It was I had about 3 or 4 eureka moments, but the first eureka moment really was I was brought up in a household that didn't have television, and my dad was what I regard as a sort of, I often say he came from that first generation of teenagers, and what I mean by that is kids that grew up in the 50s and entered their teenage at the point when music and the arts were revolutionized through the 60s explosion, right? So I was born in 1967 on the same day as John Lennon, when the 9th of October, when Sergeant Pepper. Sergeant Pepper was released, and that was a huge influence on my folks. My dad was a mod. He rode a Lambretta, and he went down to the Kurzel's venue down in Southend and watched the Who, and you know, he brought all those stories back to us as children, as little kids. But we grew up in a house. My mum and dad weren't wealthy at all. My dad was a teacher, but he had an amazing record collection, right? So I grew up every morning with everything from, it could have been the Beatles through to, you know, could be the Eagles, the Beach Boys. This is all we had for entertainment, was that and the beach, because we lived on the beach. We literally lived on the beach pretty much. Wow. So as a kid, I was brought up in this environment of music, and I didn't, without knowing it, I absorbed all of this fantastic music, you know, and it became part of my life. And so that was kind of already in me. And then we moved, and my dad renovated a house, and they bought their first. Well, actually didn't buy a TV. He nicked a TV from his school, and we had a black and white TV in our house. And it was the first time I'd ever seen television as a kid, and I was about maybe 8 years old. And it was at the time that I brought this to show, because I knew that, because I talked about this last night on one of my broadcasts. But this was the record that got me into music.
Yes, man. Yes.
Night of the Opera. And I can remember my uncle came to see us visit us the house we were renovating, and he took us for a ride, and he had an MG BGT, and he was a bit of a flash kit, was my uncle, and he took me and my dad for a ride in this thing, and it was the week that Bohemian Rhapsody had been released, and it totally changed my life. I can distinctly remember feeling the electric, like the sort of shock waves going through me, and I just thought, I can remember thinking it, oh my God, what's this? You know, what is this thing? Because I hadn't really heard that kind of music before. My dad had sort of slightly gentler taste in music in lots of ways. But then it went on from there. So I saw Freddie Mercury perform on Top of the Pops doing We Are the Champions 2 years later. And that was my catalyst. I started being 10. I was in my first band at 12. And performing at 12, 13 years old. And then from there, it was a case of nothing else mattered. You know, it was discovering bands, discovering music. I had a friend who was the vicar's son, who was obsessed with Black Sabbath, but his dad was a fundamentalist Christian. So he used to hide all his Sabbath records in the bottom of his wardrobe. Whenever I used to go round to sort of see him, he just used to go, hey, take this. Have a listen to this. Don't tell me, Dad. Don't. So I heard Heaven and Hell, you know, Black Sabbath and Neon Nights. That's kind of in many ways was my awakening to metal, rock, hard rock. Went back from there, and so yeah, it was a youth of music. I mean, I just can't remember wanting to do anything else from the first moment I got on an acoustic guitar. My mum and dad bought me a Fender acoustic guitar, and that was it. I taught myself. I tried to have lessons, but I was utterly useless. So it was a case of teach myself and muddle on through, you know. But the thing for me it was always about the songs. I'm obsessed with songwriting and songwriters. You know, I'm far more interested in songwriters and songwriting than I am actually of bands, if I'm being honest. I'm convinced that it's the greatest communication art form that's ever existed, songwriting.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. I'm very much the same. So when did you find out you had a voice?
When I couldn't play guitar, there was nothing else for me to do. That's the truth. That was the truth. I was such a useless guitar. Honestly, man, I can't even tell you how useless I am. I mean, I still am pretty useless. I really am. And it's like, I barely get away with it with the skin of my teeth. But I was working with Mark Plunkett, who was the bass player in Little Angels. You know, we were mates since we were 8 years old, you know, and from the same junior school, grew up through secondary school, went to sixth form college, ended up in Little Angels, you know. And we were dilly-dallying around with bands when we were that sort of, you know, I suppose when we just left junior school, that sort of thing. And I convinced him to get a bass because he played trumpet. And I said, man, you got to play a proper instrument. Go buy a bass. What are you going to play? And he went, I don't know. I said, well, get a bass. Get a bass. It's only got 4 strings. You only need one finger. It's not that difficult, you know. Right. Yeah. So I told him all this stuff, you know, and he went and got a bass guitar. And we had a friend who had a sort of crappy drum kit, and I started to try and play guitar, and I was so terrible. It was such an awful racket that we convinced one of our friends, a guy called Wayne, to come and play guitar, who was really good. He was actually genuinely a good guitar player. And I thought, God, I'm going to have to do something, aren't I? I'm going to have to do something else. So the only thing left was the singing, because no one else wanted to do it. And so that's what I mean, I was utterly rubbish. I mean, rubbish to start with. I mean, rubbish. But I mean,
can you remember like your first sort of performance, like performing to a group of people?
yeah.
What?
Oh,
How old were
I
you?
was 12 years old, and I played at my brother's 9th birthday party in the church hall. My mum and dad were churchy people. I wasn't. I mean, I'm an absolute total atheist, but my mum and dad were believers. My dad isn't anymore, but my mum was quite fundamental, and so we did everything in the church as kids. And we went. It was a church hall. It was the Hummonby Parish Church Hall, and I spent a week building a stage out of my dad's scaffolding because he was a builder, and carrying bits and pieces down there for a whole week to play in front of 9 of my brother's friends. The drum riser was so tall because it was a scaffold tower. I put the drum riser. It was honestly, this is true. I got my friend to put his drum riser. It was 12 feet tall. This drum. I mean, couldn't even see him. It was so high. I thought I think I made a bit of a mistake here. It was ridiculous. But it was like, for me, it was like I was Freddie Mercury, a bad version of Freddie Mercury, playing a crap guitar on stage at Wembley. That's the way I felt about it. I just thought, this is it. I've arrived, you know. So yeah, I was 12. Yeah.
So you were doing all those songs like Queen and stuff, or
No, I was playing rubbish songs that we'd written ourselves and we thought were great.
Right.
You know? Oh no, we weren't good enough to learn someone else's songs. Crying out loud, please. You know, that's all. Do you know that's another part of the reason why I became a songwriter and why I love it so much is that I was so genuinely terrible at playing an instrument that I couldn't learn covers. I still can't. I find it really hard. I do my cover. I do a cover every Wednesday at the moment. I think I'm on my 20th or something, the 21st or something. I can't tell you how difficult it is. I spend all day. I've got a whole list of songs I want to play, favorite songs of all time and all that, and then I spend sort of all day trying to learn 3 or 4 of them until I find one that works. Because it's not because they aren't great songs, because I can't play them. Because it's so I find it difficult. But I prefer being a songwriter than a mimicker of other people's music anyway. So
yeah, no need to imitate. That's right, man. I'm with you 100%. Talking about your albums and stuff. So you're in that very an incredible club of a #1 album. Wow, man. So how many albums was it before Jam with Little Angels?
Well, we made 3 studio records. So the first one was Don't Pray For Me, 1989. And the second one was Young Gods, which was our breakthrough record, really. That's when we started having proper hit records. I mean, our first major hit was Radically Your Lover, which we wrote, me and Bruce Dickinson, not from Iron Maiden, but Bruce from the Little Angels. We co-wrote that song with Dan Reed. And when the Dan Reed Network were huge at the time, and they were breaking through, and they were a really hot band, and we were very lucky to get to work with Dan, and I've sort of formed a lifelong friendship with him, you know. But Radical was our first major hit. I mean, believe me, that is something to experience. And I'll tell you this, it's a little anecdote, and this might illustrate the way that the world used to be. Right. So we were touring the Don't Pray For Me album, and we'd spent virtually the whole of our recording advance, which was huge at the time. We signed to Polydor Records. So it was an international sort of major label, and they put us in some major studios. They put us in Great Linford Manor, which was a huge studio, which is no longer, there's a hotel now, but it was near Milton Keynes. But at the time, that was the studio to work in. And Polydor did that to show off, really. Oh, we've signed Little Angels, and we're going to show to the whole world how much money we're spending on them. It was like that sort of thing. But we were so green. All we'd really done is maybe done half a dozen recording sessions, but we've done them mainly on B16, tape to tape, you know, and then we'd gone and done one session on 24 track, and then we'd spent a whole bunch of time in the studio with various producers working on 24 track studios around London, but they were only for like 1 or 2 days. It was all demos to try and get a deal and all that. So by the time we hit Great Linford Manor, we kind of knew what we were doing, but we were not prepared for the experience of making a proper record. Because you got to remember, back in those days, it was SSL, 48 track machines, 2 Studer A80 machines, 5 or 6 people in the studio, a tape op, first engineer, second engineer, the producer, someone to change the mics. It was just a ridiculous cavalcade of people that were real craftsmen, and so we were there as the kind of musicians sat at the back being told what to do, right, everyone in place, that was it. Off we went and recorded. But it was a real proper craft, it was a really difficult thing, and it wasn't Pro Tools. It was, you cut a vocal. Shane, you love this. You cut a vocal. I mean, it used to take probably a day just to record the vocal, then probably 2 days to edit that vocal, because we would be doing what we call ping pong. So it was not like Pro Tools now, selecting a section of it and dropping it into the track below and off you go. It was time consuming and meticulous and all that. So by the time we kind of gone through a couple of those processes, and we worked with Eddie Kramer, who was worked obviously with Hendrix and Led Zeppelin, and we were desperate to work with Eddie. And we spent 3 weeks with him at Rockfield Studios, which is where Queen recorded that record. And it was a disaster. And we spunked all the money completely. And we had to go to Polydor and ask them for our second album's advance to record the first album, because there was no money left. And we'd spent a fortune. I think we spent 60 grand. And this is going back to 1989, right? Imagine what that is. So just to cut to the quick. So we've gone through all this whole process. Don't Pray For Me, the first album, hasn't worked. We'd had a couple of minor kicking up dust, had done okay. American radio kind of liked it. Europe was doing okay, but it was not by nowhere success. We'd done 40,000 albums of that first record, and it was considered a total failure. So we were looking for a hit, and our manager at the time said, "You ought to re-record Radical Your Lover, that song you wrote with Dan Reed, because I think it's a hit. We'll do it with, I've got some ideas. We'll do it with some horns. We'll do it a bit like Aerosmith." That was the whole idea, to sort of ape Dude Looks Like a Lady, really. That was the whole concept, really. So we go in. Polydor refused to give us the money to start with, but then they eventually managed to get 500 quid out of them. We went into Slaughterhouse Studios in Driffield and spent 24 hours recording one song with a guy called Stephen Harris, that was his first project. And that song became a massive hit for us. Now, So what happened was, I mean, this is funny, but right? So we're driving up the motorway to a gig in Middlesbrough Town Hall Crypt, which held about 400 people at the time. I don't even know whether it's working anymore, that venue. But above it, they had the town hall, like the Middlesbrough Town Hall. And we were waiting for the song to get the chart position for Radical Your Lover, okay? And we're in the car, in the van, the band's van. And the night before we played to 100 people, we were still in that 100, 150 people position. You know what I mean? We are breaking out. We're doing okay, but it wasn't loads of people and didn't know what to do next. And we got a call from our manager on our car phone, which were about this wide, and a massive handset like that. It's a sort of like, hello, it's one of those, you know. So we got a call from him saying, "You've gone in at number 32, and it's going to be on the chart show within the next couple of hours." So we pulled over on the side of the motorway, heading up to Middlesbrough. Seriously, we're about an hour and a half away from, remember distinctly, and we're in this sort of waiting in this lay-by, and we heard it go on the chart. We're dancing around in this field and all the rest of it. Oh my God, we're in the British charts, you know. Which was an amazing achievement. It really was at that point, right? We then drive off. The phone goes at half an hour away from Middlesbrough. Same thing, manager. You're never going to believe it, but they're moving the gig, which had sold 200 pre-sales, something like that, to the town hall above. That had been inundated with people phoning saying, "We want to go and see this band tonight." So we played that night. In the course of 2 hours, we played to 600 people, not 150 that we were expecting to. That was the power of radio at that point.
Yeah.
If you were in the British charts and you were on Radio 1, everything changed. Everything changed. So we went from that, which was 150 people, to 600. And then on our next album, Hammersmith Apollo, sold out 1 week.
Wow.
Mate. That's the way it worked then, because that was the power of the BBC and the power of, you know what I mean? The charts and all the rest of it. So yes, by the time we got to Jam, we'd built that head of steam. You know, we were selling out city halls, and we were doing well all around Europe and Japan and all the rest of it. And so we were poised for that number one. It was an amazing achievement. You know, we didn't expect it, but it wasn't a surprise because we'd worked so hard on the process, if you know what I mean. And the record label were amazing. I mean, I'm never going to slag off Polydor. They were a brilliant label to us. They worked really hard for us, and they achieved the success of it. And that, you know, I mean, to get that record, we sold a lot of records. You know, it was the days when everyone sold a lot of records. You know.
Yeah. Incredible. Number one. How did you feel with that? Number one. Going in on number one. That's
yeah,
insane. Surely so you've had 3 before that. Am I right? 3 albums
before. Two before.
Yeah. Third album, then went number one. Did you then think, well, that's it now, world domination?
Well,
you know what I mean?
All right, I'll tell you another. Sorry, if I'm boring you, please just go that.
No, keep going.
Okay, so this is really important, right? This will illustrate to everyone who's watching this the craziness of the record industry, and I still hold this anecdote as the pivotal moment where I realized how utterly ridiculous it is, and all you should be concerning yourself with is the music, right? And this is the reason. So we're playing a live gig in Piccadilly Circus. I think it must have been, I think it was a HMV or a Tower Records. I can't remember which one it was, to be in all honesty. But we've been booked to play on that morning of the album being released, and so we were playing it, say, the next week or something like that. And we were waiting for the chart position of the album. That was the point, right? So Polydor managed to get us a position where we were playing in the middle of the shop of this huge record store in Piccadilly Circus, right? And we were a big act at the time, and so the police had to close the road off. There were so many people in the street and so many people in the shop wanting to watch us play that they had to close the road. And me and Bruce Dickinson, after we were going to finish this little gig, it was only a 15-minute thing, you know what I mean, in front of this open audience. We were due to get into this car and drive to the airport and to go and do a press junket straight from the stage. That was the whole plan. So we're in the middle of this gig, at which point our manager runs onto the stage, stops the audience, stops the gig, and says, "We've gone in at #1." That was the whole thing, and the place went fucking nuts. You know, it's like, oh my god, we were like, oh, we can't believe this is incredible. We've arrived. What a feeling, a staggering feeling. So we're bundled through this crowd, people ripping at your clothes, all the things you can think of. We're thinking, oh my god, this is it. We've arrived. You know, get in this car. And the car had we were with our manager, and he had a mobile phone. I didn't. None of us had phones at the time. Of course, it was days when not many people had them. Yeah. But the phone went, and it was my wife, my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, saying, "Have you got any money? Because we can't pay our rent." So that was like, I went, oh. So here I was, #1 album, playing to an audience where they closed the street off in our capital city. By the police were closing it off. There was cordons. I'm in a car heading to the airport to go and do a press junket, and I'm absolutely skint. To the point where I couldn't afford my rent. So I had to borrow some money off the band. I remember it distinctly. I had to get some money somehow. And at the time, you couldn't even transfer money like you can now. You know, it was like someone had to go to the bank and put the money in. It was that sort of thing. So I managed to sort of organize this, panicking. And next time I'm on a plane to Austria with champagne in the you know, that's the world. And that hasn't, I don't think that's changed for musicians. You know what I mean? No. Doesn't matter how successful you might think you are. The reality is, a lot of the time, we've all got full-time jobs, we've got kids, we've got families, and you're trying to make ends meet. I mean, I wasn't married at the time, I didn't have children, you know, etc. But I still was in a position where the band weren't making any money, and people probably thought I had a yacht and drove around in a Ferrari. You know, it was crazy.
Wow. That is the highs and lows. It's insane. So having all that success doesn't necessarily mean you're successful sort of financially. Wow.
Yeah, nuts, man, nuts. But you know what? They're great life lessons.
Yeah.
And what year was that, Toby? What year was that?
Well, it was 1993.
Yeah.
And the other thing, you know, we'd spent so much of that year touring. We never stopped touring. I mean, that was the thing, you know, from the Young Gods tour right through to the end of the band, really. We just didn't stop. You know, we toured with Van Halen, you know, and the only time they came to the UK really in Europe and did that whole of their sort of arena tour with them. And we went from that to Bon Jovi, you know, that was a stadium tour. We did them on the Keep the Faith tour, and we toured with, I mean, God, we just toured with so many acts, and of course touring on our own as well. And we just didn't stop. You know, it was a never-ending sort of process. I think I was at home 6 weeks in 1993. You know. It was absolutely nuts, you know, and so you kind of get used to the process of that, and you're living like, it's like you're living on the road, you're living in a tour bus, you're living on planes, you're living in cars. It's actually not as glamorous as people might think it is. It's an absolute strain and a drain half the time, but it's just, for me, it was just that 45 minutes on stage or that hour on stage. It's the only thing I care about. And so I'm sure you'll agree, you put up with the rest of it for that, you know?
Oh, 100%. I think we're all a bit insane, really, because I mean, we love it that much. What normal sane person would do that? You know what I mean? You're absolutely right. For that reason alone, just for the love of it, crazy.
Did you find that 93 was that like a changing point in music? Like you said, there's different changing points earlier with the virus, and there's been others. Did you feel like if that would have been maybe the late 80s, it might have been different financially, or was it kind of going there a lot earlier than anyway?
the 80s, the end of the 80s, and my experience of that was that the record industry was at its height there. Really, it was if you weren't selling 1 million records first album out of the box, then you were a failure. That was the way they looked at it. And you think about all those bands like Slaughter and Vixen and I don't know, Skid Row and all those bands from the Americans specifically, because they lived in that country and they had that access to that massive audience. They were regularly selling. I mean, I can remember people talking about bands like I don't know, Love Hate or someone like that selling 3 million copies of their debut album or whatever it was, and like that was kind of normal. That was like, oh yeah, well, they've only done 3 million, it's like it was that sort of thing, but that put them on the road to this enormous success, so there's a kind of, you have to sort of look at that, it was a wholly different time, and the record industry was able to do that. I mean, I always remember with the Jam album, I went to go to WH Smith's about 3 days before the album was released, and I was living in London at the time. And I walked around this corner, and what greeted me was one of those enormous sign, like a roadside sign, like a huge one of those clear channel signs, that huge things, like 20 foot tall and 80 foot wide. It just said Little Angels Jam album out tomorrow, and I didn't even know they'd done that. I'm looking at this thing going, I got a plastic bag with me pen and me pencil sharpener in it or something, and I'm looking at this thing thinking, who's paid for that? And like, but what the most amazing thing was is that they put one of those awnings in every single major town in the country.
Wow!
And I found out later on that each one cost £15,000.
Oh.
So they were flush with money, and so they didn't. It was like opulence beyond belief. And even though that money was ultimately coming out of my pocket because it's all about recoupables and all the rest of it, ultimately they were able to do that, right? It was unchecked is what it was. It was unchecked. And then, of course, the 80s finished and we got into the 90s. And then what really happened was there was just a change in the atmosphere, a change in music. Exciting things like Nirvana started happening, and the grunge scene exploded. And I was a massive fan of that. People always go, well, the grunge scene killed rock. No, it didn't. Go listen to Nevermind. There's guitar solos all over it.
I mean, you've resonated with us, there, because 93 is when me and him started getting into a band, and Nirvana exploded, and all we wanted to do was just get in a room and make noise. And then it's great bands like the Beatles, Queen, Bob Dylan for Shane. There's Tom Jones, just numerous artists with great songs, as you said earlier, just inspired myself and him there to carry on and be in a band and play a Memorial Hall to, I don't even know what that gig was. I think we were playing La Bamba or something. It was just like, it was random at 13, 14. But if it wasn't for that energy and that watching that Nirvana Smells Like Teen Spirit in a school gym, it was everybody just wanted to kind of do it, like, that was the thing. So
yeah, I mean the grunge explosion was kind of like the punk rock explosion that happened to me when I was a kid. Yes. I mean, I can remember 1977 when Nevermind the Bollocks came out, and and I had a friend called Barney who was literally the archetypal punk. He had the mohawk and the sort of 20 eye docks up to his knees and the jeans and all. And me and him were great mates. And I used to have me denim jacket with Status Quo drawn in on biro on the back, and all that, me sort of hair and all. I was the rocker, he was the punk, but we were great friends. And he introduced me to all that whole scene. And I felt very energized by that as a kid, listening to this kind of street music. Essentially, is what it is. It's the only street music that Britain's ever produced, really. I know it kind of originated in America, but the reality is that Britain took it and made it into something of a real art form. And I think that whole process of anyone can play music, and so they should. None of this kind of preserve of the likes of the Genesises and the Pink Floyds at the time, which is what really were dominating at the time. But it took away that need to have to feel that you were if you were sort of there was a lot of insecurity about being a musician back then because of all this incredible. I'm not knocking Pink Floyd or Genesis at all. Fantastic bands, made amazing records, but it was kind of highfalutin. It was a bit like you ought to be a bit of a scientist to be in a band, really. It was a bit like that. Whereas, like, the punk thing and it was the same thing as grunge. It just knocked the doors off. It went, anyone can do this. Actually, what's important is what you're saying. What's important is the thing that you're contributing to your generation, and how you talk about those messages and how you bring that to the fore. And that was the important thing. And I think I felt that with Nirvana happened. I mean, I remember being in the shop when I first heard Smells Like Teen Spirit. It was in Leeds. We were on tour. We were playing Leeds TNC. I went and wandered into this music store, and I heard this music, and I went to the guy at the counter and said, "What the hell is that?" And he goes, "Oh, it's this new band, Nirvana, And I just thought it was absolutely stunning, and still do. You know, I still think Nevermind is one of the great rock records ever made. You know.
Yeah.
Fact. Yeah. Love
Yeah,
that.
that definitely lit a flame with us, and a lot of bands around our area as well kind of caught onto that, and they went on to sell thousands of records, and you know what I mean. So it created a scene, especially where we're from. It just almost ignited that, because rock was always massive in Wales anyway. Like, you know, it's.
Oh, mate, listen, I have a love affair with Wales because of the rock and roll, man. I spent so many of my formative years driving down from, can you believe this, driving down from Scarborough to set off 5 a.m, drive all the way down to sort of Tonopandi and play the Naval Club, or play Maesteg 4-7 Club, or play Bogies in its original form when it was under the arches. And, you know, man, we used to, and Lanharrow Rugby Club we used to play a lot, and, you know, Newport Lasers, and oh, man, honestly, we were made to feel at home there, you know.
We played Bogies when we were 15, 16, Shane. Because our mate's dad took us there, and I genuinely shit my pants because it was gothic. It was really, really gothic.
Oh, man,
and I'd never seen anything like that. Obviously, I had my kind of knitted jumper on, and I was in my grunge era. And then all of a sudden, you start seeing what I thought were vampires. And it just blew my mind. And then we started traveling a bit more. So we did our TJs, and like you just said, then Llanarran Rugby Club. That's mad. Yeah, same path.
Oh, it was brilliant. It's brilliant. Well, we sort of opened for a lot of really cool Welsh bands. I mean, I remember there was we opened for this band called what the hell were they called? It was one of the guys that used to be in Budgie. I forget what they were called now. But there was a lot of those acts that were dragging around, you know, and there was Nev's band, you know, that were at Cougar. I don't know if you remember that band Cougar that with Nev McDonald had. And you know that we opened for them a number of times and got to know those guys, and it was a brilliant scene down there. I mean, actually, it was, you know, there was, for us, it was the northeast. It was like Newcastle, Middlesbrough, Morpeth, all around there, all those that kind of area where we sort of got a toehold, and South Wales, the valleys. So the two areas were, and there was nothing in the middle. I mean, you know, we'd go and play Birmingham or Sheffield initially to start with, but like it'd just be a load of people sort of like spitting at you, or, you know, like or whatever, you know, just the standard thing, you know, like only you know, like sort of, you know, the light show was one light bulb. Literally, we did this one gig. Where the light show was a guy literally with his arm around the corner turning the light switch on and off. That's what that was it. And we honestly, really, that's true. That was true. And midway through the show, we got to remember we were all dressed in spandex, and we've got hair like I've still got and all the rest, and we're all playing. Brucey's got his Les Paul, we've got Marshalls for days and all that. And there was one person in the audience, one, and I think he'd wandered in incorrectly, and in the midst of a song he went, "Are you using a microphone or what? I can't hear a word you're saying." That was his comment. I told the guy not to turn up at all. Honestly,
that's class. I love it. That kind of leads me lovely into the. Do you mind taking a few questions, Toby, from the fans?
If I'm keeping you too long, I mean, I talk like fuck.
No. I love it. It's
cool. It's great, mate. So, question for Toby: with the vast experience you've had in bands from Little Angels, Fastway Gun, Whole Truth, and now Wayward Sons, what has been some of your most memorable moments? Maybe one from each band.
Okay, well, thanks, Pete, for that. I would say there's too many to mention with Little Angels in many ways, because it was an absolute once in a lifetime opportunity and experience. You know, we went from tiny, you know, literally little kids in a tiny little buttfuck town in northeast of England to the world stages and #1 records, and so that was, every inch of the way was extraordinary. But the one moment I always think about with Little Angels, and it weirdly, because I could say, oh yeah, selling out the Royal Albert Hall, selling out Hammersmith, it was amazing, getting a #1 record. Those things are extraordinary, of course they are. But they're kind of, in many ways, they become part of the story because the story itself is so important, if you know what I mean. It's so. But what I remember more than anything else is we opened for Guns N' Roses the first time they ever came to the UK at the Marquee Club in Wardour Street, and we went down in our green van. I'd heard one song by them. They'd released It's So Easy, and my mate who ran a record store said to me, I'd gone in to see him, and I said, "Oh, you got anything by Guns N' Roses?" We'd had a call because the guy that used to run the Marquee, a guy called Bush Telford, who's an amazing bloke, legend, loved our band, and he just used to put us on at the Marquee Club all the time. So we became a resident band in the Marquee, really. And for one summer, really, straddling into two, we played pretty much all the time, open to so many bands. But one of the very first times we played there, he rang us up and said, there's this band coming in from America, Guns N' Roses. Would you open for them on this coming Sunday? They're doing 2 nights. I think Choir Boys opened the Saturday, we opened the Sunday. So I went to see my mate, and he played me this track, and I thought it was amazing. I thought, this is punk rock. It sounds like the Pistols. Love it. This is going to be great. But they weren't anything. They hadn't broken. Nobody knew who the hell they were. So we wandered down to see this, to sort of open for this band. And to cut a long story short, they were the most authentic rock and roll band I've ever come across in my life, ever. They smelt bad. Their gear was fucked. They were fighting with each other. The sound check was louder than I've ever heard anything in my entire life. Slash was stood up against 4 Marshall cabinets, you know, like one on top of each other, on full, everything on full, with his ear against it, saying to the sound guy, I mean, this place only old 500 people, with his ear up against his Marshalls, going, I can't hear it, man. Can you turn it up, man? I was like, you can't hear that. Are you joking? You know, it was, so we didn't know what the hell to expect. And they played we played our gig. We went down well, and I went out into the audience, and I'll never forget this the rest of my life. And it changed Little Angels. It changed my attitude towards music. They played a set of songs I'd never heard in my life to a rapt audience that you could have heard in between, apart from the cheering and the screaming for them. After they finished, when they stopped all the screaming and the cheering, you could have heard a pin drop.
Yeah,
Wow.
Because the audience was so enwrapped by Axl and the band and what he had to say, and no one had ever heard those songs. They played 45 minutes or 50 minutes. They played something like 9 songs, 2 of which were covers. The rest were off Appetite for Destruction. And by the end of each song, I thought I knew that song all my life.
wow.
It was a lesson of utter understanding that songs are all that matters. Because I didn't give a shit that he was wearing a fur coat on stage. I thought he looked like a prat, frankly, and especially under them lights. But you know, but the reality was, I was singing Paradise City. I was singing Sweet Child of Mine, second chorus in.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right? I never heard them before in my life. And I spoke to Axl. I mean, I had a conversation with Axl after the gig. I knocked on the door really gingerly as this little kid. I was like wide-eyed, you know. And he came to the door and he opened it and goes, "What do you want, man?" And I goes, "Oh God, I just wanted to say how amazing the show was. Let's go to the bar." So he drags me to the bar, and we sat just talking 15, 20 minutes. And I just said to him, "How did you get that good? I mean, I've never seen anything like this. You know, this is just the most incredible thing I've ever seen." He goes, and he just said to me, he says, "It's all about rehearsals." He said, "We rehearsed our arses off." He said, "We did not leave our rehearsal room until we knew we had that album in place, until we had those songs, until we knew we were good enough." We said we rehearsed 8 hours a day, 7 days a week. We lived in a roller door, like it was a roller door. I think he said it was like a lockup. And they built bunks out of waste timber, and ate off barbecue, like portable barbecues. But all they did was rehearse every day, all day. And you could have heard a pin drop in our van when we drove back to Scarborough that night. I mean, we changed. We went from rehearsing twice a week to rehearsing 6 days a week, 8 hours a day.
Wow.
And that to me is that's my memory of that, the greatest moment of Little Angels, because it was the greatest moment of realization of what we needed to do to become a real band, if you know what I mean. So that was that one.
That's class.
I know it's mad. It's true. So that's all that one. I mean, I had some fantastic times in bands. I mean, I worked with Gunn for a while, and those guys were brilliant. I think Dante and Giuliano are fantastic songwriters, and there were some great moments. We headlined a venue in, I forget which one it was. It's the big academy in Glasgow. Headlined it, you know, and I'd only been in the band about 6 months or so, and I saw the power of that band. You know, the Scottish lads, hometown show.
Yeah.
Unbelievable reception, and I saw what that music meant to their fans, and I was absolutely blown away by that. That was an incredible experience work, and they were such gentle people and such nice guys. They were a joy to work with. So I'd just say that their working with those guys was enough of a highlight, frankly. Working with Fast Eddie Clarke was an experience in Fastway. I mean, Eddie was the single most honest man I've ever met in my life. Taught me more lessons than I knew. I started working with him back in 2007, and we did Download, and you know, I got asked to join us to replace the original singer from Fastway, who didn't want to do it. And my now agent and manager, one of my managers, Steve Strange, who runs X-Ray Touring. Steve was the drummer in the band, and we toured all over the world with that. We went to Japan, and that was extraordinary. But it was actually, in some respects, surviving Eddie, which was the challenge, because he was a real enfant terrible. You know, he was, like I say, the most honest man I've ever met, the most challenging relationship I've ever had to endure. And almost in a way, it was a bit of a surviving it with him, but in a really good way. I learned so much from the guy, and it was one of the saddest things that's ever happened to me when he passed away. Because even though we struggled with each other a little bit, I learned so much from the man, and I carry that with me now. You know what I mean? I carry those lessons of how to deal with people, because you couldn't have got a nicer guy really underneath it all, and he just wanted to do good. He was all about the fans for him, and I was the same as that, you know. So again, relationship based. Eddie was an extraordinary person to work with, and changed me completely. And what else we got? So yeah, I mean, the whole truth was an experience. And when I was making my first solo record, that was difficult, because it was the end of the Little Angels, and I was very, very angry about the whole period. And I wrote my first solo record, which is entirely about that whole process, because I realized, you know, quite a lot of years ago, that the only thing that you need to be as a songwriter is 100% honest. You have to give a piece of yourself every time you write a song. It doesn't matter where that piece comes from, whether it's a good place or a bad place. You've got to give a piece of yourself to that concept. Otherwise, it has no authenticity. It's not real. And so I completely and utterly did that with the Whole Truth album, and I'm really glad I've just re-released it actually, and it's doing okay, you know. So I'm very pleased that people have got a chance to hear it, because it got buried. That was a bad experience, sadly. And with Wayward Sons, I'm just really happy to even be doing it again. You know, I didn't do it for any great grand plan. I did it because I wanted to have fun and chuck my guitars about. Yeah, that was exactly right. And yeah, so no, look, Wayward Sons has turned into something I didn't expect. I did it because I got asked to do it. I had no intention of ever being in a band ever again, but I got asked by some cool people, you know, Frontiers, you know, a little label, as you know, and those guys approached me and said, look, we'll help you make a record and get you back in the saddle. And I went, well, I'm not certain I want to be back in that saddle again. And they went, well, let's see what happens, you know. And I went, okay, you know, fair enough. And I made the first album with some friends. It was literally, we chinked glasses at the beginning of the making of it. And I said, look, whatever happens, let's just have some fun. Let's not care too much about, you know, getting overwrought by the nature of all this. Let's just enjoy this. And the album came out and did really, really well, and prompted a second record, you know. And I think what I've loved about that, the process, is that it's been completely natural. There has been no, like I said, there's no grand plan. There was no, right, I'm going to take back the world, I'm going to be a big artist again. It was nothing like that. And actually the atmosphere of that, and the reason why it's worked, is because it hasn't been that at all. I've stepped onto the stage every single time I've played with that band and enjoyed just being there. You know what I mean? Just wanting to play with the guys. And I genuinely don't care what anyone thinks about it. I just enjoy it, you know. And
in that sort of respect, are you enjoying it more now than you ever did, kind of, because there isn't that pressure? There's just you being you, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's Shane. That's absolutely nail on the head there. Head of the nail there. It's just a joy. I mean, yeah. The only thing I care about is the songs and the music, and that's, you know, I even though the Wayward Sons is, like I say, it didn't start out as a serious project. It's turned into a serious project. Because I focused all of my energies on just writing the songs. I thought, I'm just going to write some great songs. That's all I want to do. I just want to write the best songs I can, record them, and see what happens. I'm not concerned about headlining places anymore. I'm not bothered about. I just want to have a go again, you know, just do it properly and have some fun. And so, because I went in with that attitude, it was completely that. I just cared about the audience. All I really give a toss about was whether the audience liked the music or not. And so far, so good. Yeah.
Yeah. And like all through what I'm getting here from questions and stuff, the people have followed you from pretty much day one. I mean, there's some lovely comments here. I got to read this out to you.
Well,
B. Edwards, Toby, do you remember in the early days playing many times in a bowling alley in Wokingham called the Big Apple, and a warm-up show in Reading in the Central Club?
I do.
The same day as her birthday, and you all sang to her 30 years ago.
I remember it, and I remember it because the stage was made out of stage blocks, and as we started to play, and they started coming apart, and I would put my feet down between these daft stage blocks. Yeah, and I remember singing it to her. I actually do. I remember that Phil Wilding, the guy that was a journalist at Kerrang at the time, came to that gig and reviewed that show for us. Oh, I remember that very well. I remember the Wokingham shows like they were yesterday. It was That was a brilliant gig. That was run by a friend of mine. I'm still friends with the guy. You know, it was a great scene, man. You know, it was that whole period was a brilliant scene. You know, I think, funnily enough, there's a friend of mine who was in a band at the same time, who's now he works in television, and I forget what the hell they're called. I'm terrible with names of things. I'm awful. But anyway, the Claytown Troupe, the Claytown Troupe. That's what they were called, and they did pretty well. You know, they were signed. I think they were signed to Virgin. I think, and my mate, you know, Christian, he was the singer in the band, and he rang me a couple of days ago. He goes, "Oh man, we've got to do so. I've got an idea." I said, "What?" And he goes, "We've got to talk about our era, man. No one talks about our era." And I thought, actually, that's very true. You know, everyone talks about the period, but no one talks about that period, which was really, really very, very successful for British rock and roll. Actually, one of the periods of successful guitar music. You know, Thunder, The Almighty, Little Angels, you know, Choir Boys, Dogs D'Amour, you know, and then that went on to Therapy. It led into Terrorvision. It led into, you know, there was a whole plethora of bands that were precursors to what we now regard as kind of like, I don't know, the rock bands that meant something, you know, and they were all major label signings, and we did really, really well. I mean, there wasn't a week that didn't go by that there wasn't a Thunder single in the charts, or a Little Angels single in the charts, or you know, or whatever, or the Almighty, and we were all headlining big shows, but it hardly ever gets talked about. And so he's planning on trying to do a kind of like a book and cause he works in film and television, and he wants to talk about that period, and I hope he does, because it's kind of it's a bit of a forgotten era, really, you know. You know,
sounds fantastic.
Well, to a bunch of old farts like us, probably.
Okay, go
on,
on.
mate. No, go on.
Buddy.
I was going to say, yeah, I find it amazing because you've done everything from songwriting, producing, being in a band, writing a book. I followed you through the lockdown, because everybody I've found very interesting through the lockdown on who's creating what, and I love the busking in the kitchen, mate. Now you've evolved that to the Patreon, the podcasting. That's a lot of energy. That's but I love that. So you're obviously passionate about everything you do, and you can see that you channel it all into the art, and that's why I'm kind of glad we had you on, because you've answered about 15 questions in one, where you've kind of said,
sorry.
No, but I love it, because I've always wondered, bloody hell, fair play. Never, you know, he's never stopping, which I find inspiring, and Shane does. And I think any band should, if you're constantly thinking of new things, how to evolve, how to do this, because we're exactly the same. We're 100 miles per hour, and it's how to channel down the right route. But I can tell, and I'm really, really glad to talk to you tonight, that the passion is still there, and now I understand why. It's the art that drives you. It's not the I'm trying to make millions from this, because you're very realistic on where you are and the foundations that's been laid and everything. But it's more about the creative side of it, and you've got to get that out, and I've still got stories to tell from that, and I haven't got that out yet, and I haven't done, and I love that, Toby. That's I think that's amazing, it.
Well, listen, I really appreciate you saying that. That's a very generous comment. I think at the end of the day, you only have yourself to either blame or celebrate, you know. And I think, you know, for me, I bubble every day with music and art. I can't help myself, and I'm sure it's the same for you guys. I don't wake up and it's the first thing I'm thinking about. It's the last thing I'm thinking about when I'm going to bed, and it's not because it's a burden. It's because I just can't help myself. And it's a bit of a curse, actually, in a crazy way, because, you know, the amount of times my wife says, "Haven't you finished yet? Have you not?" You know, and we've been married 26 years. Are you still working?
Yeah.
And I ain't spotted the time, you know. And I like, when I've been in studios, you know, I mean, I often sort of say to people, I earn about £4.30 an hour when I work in a studio, because I'll do 17, 18-hour days. If I'm recording a band and they've got 2 weeks to make an album, I'm the first one in and the last one out, because I'm the producer, you know, and I'm holding the reins, and it's my production vision, and I'm trying to work, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a kind of process that you go through, which is just unrelenting. And I've never been short of stamina. I think if I've got one thing, I know I might not have a lot of quality in some respects, in some areas, but I certainly have a lot of stamina. And I think stamina counts for an awful lot in this game, frankly. You know, you just got to keep going. And as long as you're enjoying it, guys, that's the thing. I think the most important thing is you've got to stop thinking that it's a job. It's not a job. It's vocational. you know, it turns into a job. And of course, there are job aspects of it. But the reality is, if you start thinking about it as a job, all the joy goes out of it. Believe me, I've been there. You know, it's, you know.
We've said that, Toby. Because we've done like we've been in bands in the past, and you think you're getting there, and then it all collapses, or the foundations go, or somebody's left the band, you have to start again, and then you rebuild and you keep going, With this band, we've always been honest from day one. We've said it to many guests who come on here. I think that's kind of an asset and why we work so well. We've always been honest with each other. Like you said about the glass in the air and the ching, let's have fun. Then lately there's become a real reality of where we are and what we've achieved. So it's kind of building on that and not becoming complacent and appreciating the moments, which I think I can't remember half the moments from the past, because some of them do fly by. And then it's only when you kind of sit there and you kind of go, oh, wow, we did do that, or we did do this. Because when you're in that moment, you are constantly thinking of what's next.
Yeah. And that's natural, because that's a process, you know. I mean, I think, you know, being musicians, you know, we're all very passionate people, you know. I always sort of say to people, look, I don't go into this. When people have slagged off music of mine, which has happened a lot, you know, I say, well, reality is I don't go into a studio to make a shit record.
Yeah,
you know, I go into a studio to make as good an album as I possibly can, and it's just whether the timing's right, or whether, you know, or whether. So, because the passion's never changes, the passion's always the same, and the moment the passion goes, everything goes. You know, when I've watched you guys emerge, and you know that everything you've done, and you've taken care of business. You know, you've taken care of exactly the right things, which is your fans and building it slowly, and being careful, and making and writing and recording great songs, and that's all you need. That is all you need. I mean, you know, I get asked so many times, what do you think is the key to success in the music business? And I go, well, here's the thing. Biggest piece of advice I could give you is nobody knows anything. They don't. I've been in boardrooms with people, 20 people down sides of boardrooms where they're all talking over each other, and they're saying, well, what are we going to release? And I go, I can remember about Womankind, which ended up being our biggest hit single. Polydor didn't want to release it. And I said, well, we've got to release that. Why? Because I'd read, and I believe this anyway, but I'd read an interview with Elton John, and Elton John was asked this question: what do you do when you make a record, Elton? How did you decide? Because you had so many hits. How do you decide which songs to release again? He just pondered a bit, and he went, I record the album and I release the best song. And I just thought that's it. That sums it up completely. You know, you can talk yourself out of problems, and into problems rather. You can talk yourself out of the best decisions you could possibly ever make. Trust your fucking instincts.
Boom. That's it.
You as your band. You as your band are the only people that know. No record company boss does. No manager does. No tour manager does. No girlfriend, wife, friend does. You guys, as a collective entity, understand more than anybody else, above the fans, above everyone, because you have to do it for yourselves, and you have to know precisely what it is you want to be. Believe in it. That's all I can say. It's the only chance you got, and as long as your songs are strong enough and you develop that, and you have a focus on the music, you've got any band's got a chance. There's no mystery as to why you guys are having success. It's because you concentrate on the right stuff, and you've got passionate belief in yourselves, and that's evident. That's all we have. The moment you start believing the bullshit and the people that surround you beyond your own instincts, it's over. I'm telling you.
Yeah. Mate, I want to get up and stand on the chair. That was incredible.
Yay!
It's so spot on.
That is what it's all about. And Shiner's going to have a trouble with his one-liner later on, because that one line you just said there, that was it. He ain't beating that. One line of Shiner, that was great.
And that's why you make a great mentor for up-and-coming bands as well, and they should take on that advice. If there's any bands listening tonight and they've ever spoken to Toby or they want his advice, take it, because it's there to take, like, you know, and we understand that it resonates completely with us. That's perfect. That is, like,
it's the whole truth. See what they did?
It's been 30 years in the making, boys, and I've had a lot of ups and an awful lot of downs, and you've just got to pick yourself up and carry on, you know. And the only thing that matters is the work. I mean, actually, that's a quote from Eddie Clark. You know, I mean, that was one thing on a plane flying back from somewhere or other, and he said, "What do you think it's all about, then, Toby? What do you think it's all about, mate?" And I said, man, I think it's. I said, when I think about it, Ed, all I'm really care about is the songs I write. And he goes, absolutely fucking right. He said, "It's all about the work, mate. It's all about the work."
I love that. I love that. Amazing.
Fucking so sold out Albert Hall. What was that like? What's sold out? Fucking hell! Incredible.
Heartbreaking, because it was the last gig we ever played. I mean, you know, the sadness of it is that I didn't take my own advice at that point. I didn't listen to my instincts. I didn't challenge the controlling elements that were looking after the band at the time. I didn't stand up and say, "You're a bunch of twats," and actually we can still carry on with this, because we were talked out of our band. That's the truth of it.
Shit.
We were talked out of it. You know, I can remember, boys, how about this? I can remember coming off, being on the stage. The last song we ever played of Little Angels was "Don't Pray for Me" to that sold out audience. And people, I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but it's the truth. But I could see the audience were in tears. They didn't know why we're finishing. And the sadness is, I didn't know either. I didn't know why the band was splitting up. I hadn't got a clue. I'd just been told it was happening.
Do you know now, or?
In hindsight, I realised that there were, without putting too fine a point on it, people machinating the situation behind our backs, using the excuse of, "Oh, music's changing. Oh, Polydor don't want to support the band." It was bollocks. I've sat down with the MD of Polydor years later, and he told me that wasn't true, that they wanted to support the band. They wanted to carry on working with the band. But the powers that be that were in control of all these things didn't want it to happen. And the reality is that when you're a bunch of youngsters, because we were, I mean, I got my first record deal when I was 20 years old, you know, so in a major record label, you know, so we were closeted and held in position by groups of people. A lot of it was all very well intentioned, but it was a different period of time, and people reacted differently, and things were different, and you know, the system was different, and so we were made to sort of like, we didn't ask questions, we were just told what to do a lot of the time, you know. So you arrive at that position where we sold 7,500 tickets to the Royal Albert Hall. In fact, we still hold the record. I mean, it's a bit of a brag, but I don't care. Little Angels hold the record of the most amount of people in the Albert Hall ever, and that's by default. I mean, it was by default. They were actually renovating the seats on the upper tiers, and they removed them all. And the guy that managed the building at the time, he came to us and said, "Look, there's so many people queuing up down the streets. I'm prepared to let them in." I think it was 500 or 600 people above our normal capacity on a cheaper ticket, as long as they're willing to stand up in the upper tiers. And they did that. So we ended up having 500 more in than was normally required or was allowed, you know. So you're standing out in front of that audience, playing in front of those people, with people in tears, all the Little Angels t-shirts, with Barry Drinkwater, who was our merchandise guy at the time, saying, "I don't understand why you guys are breaking up. You could be in Wembley next time. Wembley, what are you doing?" And I'm going, "Well, Barry, you don't understand, man. You don't understand." Well, actually, really, it was breaking my heart, right? And so years later, it's just because that was the way it was engineered in lots of ways.
Do you think there'll ever be a reunion?
Well, we had a reunion in 2012. We did that in 2012. We played Download. We played the second stage in Download on 2011. I think we will. I think it's a good chance, and that's a little bit of an exclusive for you guys. I think we probably will. More so now than ever before, perhaps, because we're coming to some great points in our history now. You know, like our sort of, like, next year is 30 years. Oh, is it 30 years since the release of Young Gods? You know, 1991. You know, and the year out, 2023 will be the release of the Jam album, right? So there's a good reason to do it. I mean, I'm not. See, here's the thing for me. I've turned it down loads of times. We've talked about it many times. There's been talk of us doing another album. Turned that down flat. I'm not interested in being Little Angels again. I'm not. I think we are of the moment. That music stands up well for its era, and I think there is some classic moments on there, and I'm really, really proud of the records. But for us to go and make another album and try and recapture that as a bunch of 50-somethings, never going to happen. Never going to work. But in terms of actually playing shows and saying thank you to the fans, there's a very good chance that we will do that, I think. Yeah, and it will be big shows. It will be. I'm hoping. I mean, you know, we have had some conversations with various people, so there's a good chance that we'll do a select amount of shows and just do a kind of like celebration of maybe the Young Gods album or whatever, and take some other bands out with us and have a real good party, like a couple of weeks or something, and that'll be it. No more.
Well, you've just made a lot of people happy there, mate.
I know,
There's a lot of
it's
comments coming through.
exploded.
Yeah.
Hey man, hey, listen. It's the only reason we do it. The only reason we did it was to keep the fans happy, man. That's all it was for us, really.
There we go. Take my money. That's
Yeah,
great.
take my money. Have you got any more questions off the fans for Toby there, Shane?
I've kept him so long now. I'm really sorry about this. It's gone on for hours.
No. It's Toby. Thank you, honestly, mate. It's been brilliant. I love that.
Around, but I mean, there's basically you've answered a few. There's basically asking, will it be a reunion?
I love it.
There's a really lovely comment here. Annie Joyce. She says 30 years ago, she convinced the boy to travel from London to Cheshire to see Little Angels in Warrington. They were pen pals at the time. That was the internet dating of the 90s. And Annie and that boy just celebrated their 24th wedding anniversary. That's amazing.
Oh,
so
brilliant.
You're like the Cilla Black of the rock world.
It's ridiculous, isn't it? It's ridiculous. Hey, listen, there is nothing more sobering than people coming to Wayward Sons shows, and I'm bound off, off the stage, and I'm amongst all the crowd, and we're doing, we're doing after signing our things and all that, and someone will bring up some sort of geeky-looking lanky teenager or like a 20-something, and go, "This is my son. He was born 5 years after you split up." I'm like, "How old is he?" 73. No, it's like all of a sudden he just brings the whole thing home. How bloody long I've been doing it, but that's really, that's lovely.
Look how many people you're affecting on me. That's incredible.
That's
awesome.
I know. It's good. It is great. I mean, it's a joy, and man, I'm just happy to be able to carry on doing it, and it's nice to be able to do this sort of thing. And I thank you guys for inviting me on. I really do.
Toby, wonderful guest. Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it, mate.
No problem.
Thank you,
We'll hopefully see you at a show soon. Hey,
well, we should do some shows together, shouldn't we, sometime, maybe?
Yes.
That was going to be my next thing. I would love that.
That would be good.
It would be really...
Thank you. But thank you for coming on, Toby. And
the
record's coming out 17th of July, but all the copies are sold. There's a lot of people asking for where can they buy it, but they're sold out. Is that right? Or
I did a special, just last thing, I did a special edition of the Ignorance is Bliss record, which was a remastered 25th anniversary sort of version. It's a songbook and all the rest of it, and so we just did a limited run on that, but there has been a massive demand just for the record. So I think what we may do is that we'll get a couple of weeks behind us, and I might just put out a shout to see how many people are interested in just having like a vanilla version of it, just like a booklet version in a jewel case, something like that. I won't do any more books. I think I want the books to be something really special that become collectors, and they were a one-shot deal. I think it's important that it remains like that. Otherwise, it just kind of waters it down. But I probably will put the record out as a kind of standalone CD. If anybody remembers what CDs are, those little silver things that used to come in.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Toby, and looking forward to catching you on the road, mate. And I'm going to be
guys.
and dig in
Thank you
more.
so much for the insight and knowledge and the passion, man. That's inspiring. Thank you so much.
No, not at all. And listen, you keep doing it, guys. You are the new forefront of this movement that we love so much, and keep it up. Keep it up.
Top man. Thank you so much, Toby.
Thank you, Toby. Stay safe. See you soon. Take care.
Man.
Oh man, that was incredible, wasn't it?
Another legend.
Yeah, I said to you, man, I was so buzzed to get him on because Lloyd, when we get the boys on now, all of us have seen him do his Facebook lives, and he's hit so many "ooh, he said it," or we shouldn't go there. And I'm glued there, mate. I'm literally stuck on the screen going, "Oh my god, he's going there!" And he's answered the horrible questions. He's man, absolutely brilliant, and an exclusive. Great,
incredible,
and another tour.
Amazing.
We won't be coming home.
It would be great to do some shows with them,
yes.
Whether it be Little Angels or Wayward Sons. Whatever Toby's doing, we'd be there, Toby. Just honest, and he tells it like it is.
Yeah, love that. Love his humor. Reminded me of our childhood. Just even I didn't want to start doing it to him, but you know I'm a bugger. Like when we start doing the voices and the accents and stuff like that. So I love that side of him because I can imagine having a bit of banter with him in a van or a tour bus or
So
absolutely
good, so
smashing.
great having all these guests on CrowCast because you think, they're the level they've been, they've done it, Danny last week and stuff, and then they just turn out to be great human beings. Like it's great. I'd love to go on tour with all of them.
Yes.
Make it
Well, I think
happen.
we are.
Yeah. Let's do it.
I think we are.
Who's on?
Let's do it. Crows assemble, innit?
Let's get the boys on.
Boosh. There's China. Boosh.
Yeah.
There's
Hey,
Lloyd.
hey.
Oh! There's the boys.
Yeah, that was a bit of all right, wasn't it?
Yes.
What a guy, yeah.
That was good. Really interesting. I really enjoyed that, boys.
Well, I brought you up as well, like, because you've seen a lot of his Facebook Live stuff in the past.
He used to do like the odd video as well with Rob Stampede, didn't he?
Yes. Yeah.
And yeah, it was really interesting, really intriguing.
Yeah.
Lightning in a bottle.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was really good. I remember watching one, and he was on about the sort of like the mental health issues. Not that I want to put it down on anything, but how it can affect like the whole being in a band, how it can affect you, the highs and the lows. Where he just basically told everybody as it was, but in a nice, friendly, straight way,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, he's straight. I like that though.
So
how have we been this week, guys? Let's start with Shiner up here. How have we been, bud? You had a good week.
Well, I've been on my NHS tour again, but of the NHS facilities. I've been to the dentist. So yeah, so I think the tour completes in casualty. Sometime in the near future, probably.
Did they pull any out? Did they all fill in? What do I have done? Just tell the nation.
Well, that was the thing, right? I'd resigned myself to that's it. They pulling my tooth out.
Yeah.
Because after the CrowCast last week, he was on a 45-degree angle out of my mouth. So I thought, right. I thought that's coming out.
Yeah.
So they just put me on antibiotics. It's all gone back.
Did you push it back, like?
Yeah, just like taking the antibiotics, and then my tooth started going. Whoop.
That's why you had like an abscess on it. Did you want an infection?
Yeah, I had 3 infections on top of each other.
Oh,
fucking hell.
That's not good, is it?
So but I tell you, but I'm used to it. I'm
it's
like,
all right.
Fucking walking disaster. Yeah, I'm good now.
Good.
Yeah, so casualty next week. My tour's complete.
More drugs for the collection, is it, Shane?
Yeah, they ran out Sunday. Quite disappointing about that one.
Nobody wants a 45-degree tooth, though, do they? It's like,
I tell you, it was. I think I got to about 12.
one molar shiner.
Myself, that's worse. And then I could just feel it. I said, "What's going on there?" Yeah. So I went to sleep and then went to the dentist. So yeah, all good.
But glad it's sorted. What about you, Lloyd?
Yeah.
How's your week?
Yeah, really good actually. But yeah, treating myself to some new running shoes. So I've been pounding the road. Banged out 5 miles last night and 2 miles tonight. So walking up the stairs might be a bit difficult this evening.
Yeah.
But I'm a bit more worried about walking down in the morning. I think I might just fall. But no, yeah, really good. And playing guitar. I mean, we had some news, haven't we? So it's given me a bit of a kick up the butt, which I think that we all kind of needed a little bit in terms of diet, fitness, But yeah, I'm happy. I'm really happy. It's going good.
Good man. What about you, Dave? What about you, week, bud? How have you been?
Yeah, well, been all right. Been watching like loads of Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I'm like addicted to that. Playing fuckloads of guitar because obviously we've got a reason to now. So I've just been at least 2-3 hours just playing our songs over and over again. So I've been doing that. Really enjoyed that. And also been go on, say it again.
No, go on, bud.
And also been molested by a paramedic.
Oh,
Do you want me to elaborate?
Please do.
yeah.
I
There's a
was,
siren on.
I was getting ready for work the other day, and I started having this pain in my stomach, and it got to the point where I was going to pass out and faint, so I fell on the floor, and Indy started barking, obviously alerted Lisa. She came upstairs and saw me on the floor, like blue lips, white face. So she rings the NHS helpline or something, and they're like going through questions and now. And she's like, he's not responding, because I was just lying on the floor. I was in so much pain. I was like, oh, I couldn't answer her. So obviously they sent someone out then, didn't they, to check me over?
Yeah.
Apparently what it was some like impaction or something in my gut, and it's like in the worst pain I've ever to the point where I nearly passed out. It's fucking horrendous. But yeah, I had a paramedic molesting me in my pants in my bathroom. Bit weird. So yeah, it's a bit of a mad one. Like,
what was he doing?
he was just checking through my stomach and stuff to see if he could feel anything,
Right.
and gave me some drugs as well.
And then you had like a big shit, then they went then, did they? What?
No, I got to go and have a scan on my stomach or something just to check.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bloody
It's
hell.
pretty mad, isn't it? But yeah,
Jesus
just to check.
Christ.
I know.
How come you done this? Why haven't you
I feel
said that?
fucking fine now.
It's like
I feel
breaking news. I need a breaking news.
Breaking news. Yeah, I'm dying.
Why didn't you share this with us like in the week?
I thought I'd save it for the CrowCast, didn't it?
Well,
How was your week? Well, I nearly died, boys.
I feel fine now. I feel fine. Like I feel great. It was just that pain that I experienced. I don't know what it was. I don't fucking. But it's some impaction or something. It's called. I don't think it's like serious or anything like that. But
could it happen again?
yeah, well, I don't know if it happened to anyone at any time. I think it's just unfortunately it was me at that point in time. Right?
Bloody hell.
Well, at least we know, Dave. Well, when you're lying on the floor. That's that thing again.
Right. I mean, it was horrendous. The pain was. It was like
As long as you're
Well, bloody hell.
So anyway, that was my week. Just lots of guitar and nearly dying.
as long as you're all right.
Pretty normal week.
Standard week, Dave, yeah.
Good health.
Good health.
So, are we? That's brilliant.
I don't know where to segue.
I want to get the boys' sort of reaction on obviously the news you've had with Planet Rock and stuff and playing the show. So how do you feel about it, boys?
Oh, excited.
I can't bloody wait, man. I just can't wait to get back up there. And yes,
Really
brilliant. It's bloody brilliant. It's music to my ears.
What about you, Blue Lips? Are you excited about that or?
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to do, isn't it? It's gonna be interesting.
What?
Fuck,
Go on.
definitely, yeah. Fucking, I can't wait to get in a room and bash it out the day before.
I got a one-liner for it. Like I
Too
can
early
really
shine.
this week for the one-liner about fucking time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And hats off to John Norman as well for
Yes.
coming up with a concept, putting it all together, taking a risk on it.
Well, it was we had a meeting with the manager and he put it across, and me and Shane were touching on it earlier. It was a no at first because of the position we were in. Well, we're still kind of in because obviously now we can travel a bit more, but there's still nowhere really open, and we've had a few difficulties kind of sorting a few things out. But so it was kind of a mad 24 hours, wasn't it? We weren't saying no because we didn't want to play, because we were busting to play. We were trying to work out whether we'd let everybody down, which is not what we wanted at all.
Yeah. But I'm glad we had a bit of balls to say, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
We were having an hour in week because we were like, fuck, we're going to be so underprepared.
Yeah.
But I think we got a bit of confidence in us now. And someone's injected us with some confidence serum, and we're good to go.
It was that paramedic, was it?
Yeah, it was the drugs he gave me.
You're a bit of a fucking adrenaline, Dave.
Yeah.
Get the hard paddles out, dear.
Right then, time is getting on a bit. Should we do some competitions for these wonderful people that are joining us tonight? The Crow fans,
Yes.
the Crow
Go on.
family.
Might as well, but might as well.
Yes.
So the first prize up this week is to pay it forward. One of your wonderful Crow family has obviously paid us to give something back to you guys. So we'll do the Crow wheel. Let me get it. And the prize is basically a choice of t-shirt, because we're getting to the stage now where there's a lot of people. I'm pressing the wrong thing here. There's a lot of people that got our merch. So it's a choice of t-shirt. Whatever you like at the merch store, t-shirt. Here we go. Oh, what's it gonna be? What's it gonna be? The winner is Brian Maley.
Well, I'm Brian.
Brian.
Well, I'm Bri.
I'm Brian. Brian Maley. Everybody, let us know what item you want off the store, the Crow store, and we'll get that out to you.
Good question.
Tidy. Question, boys? Time for a question?
Yeah.
Go on in.
Right there. This one's from Chris Saunders. Now you're international superstars. Has anyone told you growing up you won't make it, get a real job?
Oh my god. Both my ex-wives.
Yeah, I think I've been told that more times than I haven't.
I don't think I've ever been told it straight up, but you know when someone asks you like, "Oh, I'm in a band," they look at you like, "Are you a bit old for that?" like sort of thing, or like, you know, we still flogging that fucking thingies. You know what I mean? People I hadn't seen for like 20 years. Oh, we're still in a band. Like, you know, we're still flogging away at that. Go fucking give it up, get a job, sort of thing. It's like,
We're still trying, you.
yeah, you get that impression from people. Do you know what I mean? Like, but no one's directly said. You know, my mum always does say to me when I have a gig, "Did you get paid?" I'm like, "Nope." In 25 years later, "Did you get paid?" "Nope." She's like, "Fuck it out." She says nothing's changed in like 25 years. Like,
Yeah.
What always gets me though is like, we love what we do, don't we? We wouldn't do it otherwise.
no, fucking no, you.
But you know, I don't say to them, "Well, why do you play tennis?" You know, you haven't turned pro yet. You ain't gonna turn pro, so why are you still doing it, mate? Do you know what I mean? It's like, this is what I do. That's what you do. I'll worry about me. You worry about yourself, okay?
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? Yeah, there's someone who have enough to be paying enough attention to what you're doing to question it. Like, do you know what I mean? It's like, why?
But you know,
Yeah.
What
what about you,
Ron?
Shine?
Yeah, there's been so many of them growing up, but no, you know, when like Dave just said, you know, when someone asks you, "Oh, what you do?" rather than say playing a band, I just say I'm a fucking ice cream man. It's just easier, isn't it?
Mr. Whippy.
Where's your
Mr.
band?
Witty.
From the back.
Yeah. It's like, oh, you know, how much your ice cream? So how much you want to pay?
The Flake 99 might give it away, but
That's you up on
you know,
top of the box, isn't it, Sean?
Yeah, you know, because otherwise you get that inevitable roll of the eyes, you know, when we're playing the banjo.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the worst part is then, right, I've seen people, that, like, especially with me and my brother, that have given us that line, and you see them standing in the crowd. And you're like, you fucking hypocrite. I'm like, oh. Don't talk to me going out. Oh. But you laughs loudest.
That's it.
Very true, son.
Do you want a fucking flake?
I love that one. Do you want a fucking flake?
Oh, they're not having a flake, boys. I tell you, just for the inconvenience of it.
oh, brilliant, man.
What about you, Ron?
Pretty much kind of a bit of everything all of you said. I I used to get really tense. I think I said this to you, Shane, when we were in Rockfield, because I was kind of out of that stage. And I think I've said it to you, Lloyd, maybe you, Dave, I'm not sure, but definitely you two. And Shiner knows it. I used to go into like PR mode. Somebody say, how are you doing? And all of a sudden I go, hey, yeah, everything's great. Yeah, we're doing this, we're doing that. And you felt like you were trying to fucking justify everything rather than just say, yeah, everything's cool, man.
Yeah.
And then you would get the ones where we grow up, they would be the guys going, oh, you're not still doing that, are you? Oh, you're not doing that, are you? When you going to grow up now? And that's where we live, isn't it? It's honest. Everybody's fucking brutally honest. Like, so yeah, I'd say a little bit of all of that. And I'd say the one person who sticks out of my whole like childhood to adulthood is, do you remember Mrs. Morgan, Shane?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've said this to you. She can fuck off
yeah.
as well. She can literally fuck off. I hope she's watching. Mrs. Morgan, Ogmore Comp. She said myself,
Is it business she would teach?
Yeah, business. Oh,
Yeah.
you won't do nothing. You won't, unlucky.
You'll amount to nothing. Mm.
Yeah. And it's not even about success. It's about writing a story, innit? It's about, we've got very cool stories to tell, or we've met loads of interesting people. But it's an unfortunate thing because we come from like mining towns, villages, and it's always about, well, how much do you make here then? That's always the case, isn't it? Like,
Yeah, that's a great point, Bud, because life is valuable, but it's not just about finances, is it? Like the stories and the experiences you have, that's what's valuable. That's, you can't take money with you, can you? But you can take your memories and pass it on to your kids and your loved ones and say, Dad, you know what I mean? So, yeah, fuck you, Mrs. Morgan.
Yeah,
it's quite funny you just mentioned that. Right? Really funny you just mentioned that. You just literally just brought a story back to me that happened to me last year. I had a phone call for a bit of work inquiring, can I come and shorten some doors after they had a carpet fitted? I was like, yeah, no problem. I told them how much I charge per door to shorten. I said, right, do me a favor, text me your full name, your address, and I'll arrange a time with you. And we'll do it via text. So I done it via text, and the number said Paul Greenway. So I thought, no, that can't be. Now, Paul Greenway was my old music teacher in school, which never gave me the fucking time of day. I spent more time out of the class than what I did inside the class. And I turned up there. You go, what are you doing today? Now, like I said, I'm in a band. Oh, I always knew you'd go far. Always knew you'd go far. I was like, fuck off. You wouldn't give me the time of day, mate.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's easy to jump on board after somebody's had a bit of success. And I've known them years, they've done well.
Yeah.
But, it might have had something to do with me being a right bastard, though.
Yeah, it is a weird one where we live, though. It's like one of you could turn on tomorrow, or someone hey, he's become an astronaut. Well, how much does he earn then?
Yeah.
I bet he's worth a pretty packet.
How much does that pay in? Is that good money? Good money there? Eh? Good pension?
Yeah, sadly, success is what's in your bank account, isn't it? But it's not really.
Yeah, well, that's an easy one for us, but it's absolute zero.
Yeah.
Fuck off. Yes! I bankrupt myself twice this week.
Yeah, but it's all right. We got our instruments.
We're doing all right.
Yeah.
We're doing all right. Right then, let's have another competition. What's the next line?
Well, with asking, one of us need to win the competition.
I know. I was thinking of entering it. It's a cracking prize. It's a cracking prize. Shall I show him the prize?
Show him the prize.
Go on, then.
It's a cracking prize. Oh,
look at that.
Yeah, it's cool.
Look at
that. Oh, they've even put Shiner's cap in, look.
Oh, yeah.
That's brilliant.
So this has been donated by an anonymous source. Is that correct in saying that, Lloyd?
I believe so, yeah, it is.
It's been donated by one of the CrowFamily, an anonymous source. who would like to give that present? Sorry, I sound like Santa then. Give that prize away. Over to you, Shane.
Tell me the lyric, give me the lyric. What's the next lyric? It's lyric time. Tell me the lyric, give me the lyric. What's the next lyric? It's lyric time. What's the next line? What's the next line? What's the next line? This week, the line is, you gotta break down to break through. Gotta break down to break through. What's the line that follows? Go. Good zoom in. I was wrong. That was excellent. Zoom in and zoom out.
Thank you very much.
So let's have a question before we get an answer.
Let's go for it. This one's from. Fucking hell, boys. This one's from Derek Beecroft.
Beaky boy.
And I must apologise. He's been asking this a few times, and we've never asked it. So I thought I better give him the chance here. How do you tend to listen to music around the house for pleasure? Do you go hi-fi type quality, or will a simple Bluetooth device suffice? Oh, me personally, well, I didn't invest in it. My missus did. In an Alexa. So I kind of use that mainly around the house for leisure. I don't know what the other boys do, but that's how I listen to it.
Yeah, I bought like a Bose thing, which is like you can use it as an Alexa. So that's kind of what I use in the house. But I'll be honest, most of the music I listen to is in the car. Like that's the majority. Because I do when I go to work, I like a 16-mile drive, so I listen to a lot of music in the car. So that's my main source of music. But yeah, just about like a Bose sound thing. But you can also talk to it like Alexa. You can hook it up to Alexa. So yeah, I have got like a record player and all the rest of it, but it's a big potch to set up and all the rest of it. So
What about you, Shane?
Generally my phone, but I've got to have headphones in. I can't. I need the bottom end. Otherwise it just becomes thin, and then me being me, it just winds me up, so I don't listen to it.
Do you use like big headphones, or do you just use the buds?
If I'm out walking, I got the the ones we had with the Sennheiser in ears.
Oh yeah.
So I got them ones, but then if I'm here, I'll use my Sennheiser over the ears.
Yeah.
Shane?
Ron?
And plus, I know what they sound like. So
Shane?
Ron?
Shane?
Yeah, I'm pretty much to be honest, the mad thing is I don't listen to a lot of music because I'm creating music. I'm a bit like Dave. I listen to music in the car, and then it'll just be Spotify, iTunes on my phone going through the system like in the car. I've been listening to a lot of us lately just to try and remember the words for the kick. But yeah, mobile phone, and it's 9 times out of 10 it's in the car.
Car for me. But lately the wife's been setting up the vinyl player, which has been lush, boys. It's like kind of similar to what Shane said. I tend to listen to a lot of podcasts. So I don't listen to a lot of music in the house because I find if I want to write, or if I'm you know what it's like, Shane, if you've got a melody in your head, you can get distracted by a song or something like that. So I almost kind of keep it out the way. If I go in the car, then I'll put the music on. But lately, if we've been busy, like on the balcony, or we're doing something in the kitchen, we've been putting the vinyl player on, and that's been amazing, boys, because it's almost like you can put it on, and you just let the album play through, man. There's no skipping, there's no fucking playlists or any of that. It's listening to a good old-fashioned record, like, do you know what I mean? So that's become a thing. I think we're going to try and do it maybe at least one day a week, where just knock everything else off and concentrate on a favorite old school record or something. So
Cool.
Yeah, it's definitely an experience, isn't it? That from start to finish with the vinyl. I mean, even just putting it on and dropping the needle on, and it's definitely it's a bit of fun. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, I got rid of all my CDs, but I've kept my vinyls. Wouldn't get rid of them.
so
Thank you
We
for the
got an
question, Eric. I'm glad
the
we got to answer it.
That's a good one.
I'm looking at the answers here, boys. If you want to talk amongst yourselves, I'm looking at who had what.
Loads of people saying that they love vinyl.
yeah,
A lot of people saying you need a decent gramophone. Charlie Farley, what did you just say there? Have I checked out Dane Campbell's new drumming podcast? I have, Charlie. I really enjoyed it. Podcasts. I've always said this to the boys. I'm massive into my podcasts. From everything to wrestling to music. Chris Schiffler's got a great podcast. That's a good one, Shine, if you're ever on your walks, mate. Interviews a lot of guitarists, really cool. I think, Dave, you've already listened to Chris Schiffler, haven't you? So that's why I kind of didn't say it to you. But and then your Joe Rogans, but yeah, anything like that are they're great, Charlie. And I think Dane did a bang up job, mate, with Saxon drummer.
Back to the vinyl thing, right? The thing I find with vinyl, you know when we hear the mix in a studio, vinyl is the closest to that than what we're hearing through them.
yeah,
You know, the studio monitors.
Because
Because that's how they used to make vinyl. When it was busy, get the mix up on the board, then it would literally get printed straight to vinyl from the board.
Yeah.
Don't happen no more.
Did you know? Interestingly, that was how the Strokes did their first album.
No.
Straight onto vinyl. Yeah. No middle and no press straight to vinyl from the desk.
There's only one studio in the world I actually know. There's probably more, but there's one in Nashville who still does it. Literally get the mix up on the board, printed straight to vinyl.
Yeah.
So yeah, third album, boys.
I'm up for that.
good checkbook out here.
Trip to Nashville, like.
Yeah.
That guy.
So, have we got an answer, boys?
Yes, we have.
Excellent.
So the lyric was, "You gotta break down to break through," and the line that followed was, "Learn to reset." Isn't that funny how I picked that before Toby?
Yeah.
And Toby said about reset.
Yeah. Oof. Oof. Huh?
It's the Truman Show. I'm telling you, boys, I'm living the Truman Show. So the winner is Ewan Allen.
Woo! Congratulations, Ewan.
Yeah, he had the name. He had it right. So that's on its way to you. Send us your address, Ewan, private message, and we'll get that out to you. Congratulations, bud.
That's really cool.
They're pebbles, aren't they, Lloyd?
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
Was the microphone with the wings? Was that someone sketched that on?
I presume so. Is it a pen and ink drawing, like?
Yeah, that's really cool.
Amazing.
Yeah.
It is cool.
Absolutely amazing. What's the next line?
Oh, is it? Oh
no, I just thought I spoke you up. But it is time for this. Ooh.
I was expecting Lisa's face
it's
on
that
that
moment.
I talk bollocks. I talk bollocks. Apparently I talk shit, but then you sit there and listen to it. Now who's the fucking fool? It's you. Let me do that bit.
I think that's the best one yet, Dave.
Thought I'd keep it within, keep it patriotic. Right. So this week's is wild dogs don't bark. Barking is purely a thing that's come with domestication and breeding of dogs. You'll never find a wild dog that barks.
Dave, can I counter that? What
Go on,
about
then.
wolves?
They don't bark. You don't
They
fucking
do
wolf
something.
barking.
Yeah, you
They,
don't.
they howl, and but they don't bark.
We're all about like woof woof.
I'm gonna have
Yeah.
a look on the National Geographic channel about this.
I'll explain what happened basically when dogs and humans it was a mutual thing that they sort of like domesticate themselves when they're dogs, like it's beneficial for the dog, beneficial for the human. So what would happen is the dogs that tended to bark at danger or show signs of making noise at danger, they breed those dogs because they made good guard dogs, which was important, back when, so they breed them, and then obviously the barking gets sort of bred into dogs, and then dogs just bark. It's just a thing they do now because it's been bred into them. But I mean, wild dogs, if you're going to bark at danger, the thing wild dogs do, they run from danger, they hide. It's like stealth mode as opposed to fucking barking and everything. Fucking hell, my dog, fucking barking like fuck. She wouldn't last 5 minutes out there in the real world. Noisy fucker.
Well, if that's true, but that's pretty damn good.
Yeah.
No, it is. It's true. Yeah. When you're a wolf fucking barking.
Is that yours?
They'll howl or they'll make noises with each other, communicate with each other. You never hear them barking.
That's the question, Ron. Go on, ask that question. I know what you're going to ask.
Is that your fact, or is it Lisa's?
Lisa had no participation this week.
Shut the fucking door.
No, Dave's up this game.
Oh,
Talking of barking dogs.
Hey.
what about Ozzy Osbourne bark at the moon? Or am I just looking at the wrong concept for there? Then obviously it's because he's fucking
That's
crazy, isn't it?
werewolf, is it?
Werewolf.
Bark of the moon, a werewolf.
Oh, right, okay. Wow, well done,
Used to
Dave.
be a werewolf, I'm not now.
Well,
Yeah.
well done, Dave.
Is it true or is it not true? Ooh.
You just said it was.
Yeah. The purpose of this
I
as
would
part
say
of the
that.
column is for you to tell us something we didn't know, which is true.
Oh.
Is it true?
As far as I know, yeah. But then a lot of things I think are true.
Right then. I'm going to phone the dog warden.
I thought I was clinically fine until the other day when I almost fucking died.
Oh, here
Do you
we
know what I
go.
mean?
Well, dogs do bark, just not as much, and only when they are startled or threatened at close quarters.
John Mitchell. You fucking
The
know it
Mitchell
all.
smoke.
How many wild dogs have you been starting then, John?
Untrue.
Here we go. Here we go.
Here we go. Exactly. I love it. According to Google, Dave's right.
Of course he fucking is. Of course.
Is that Dave? Is that where you got the whatever the fuck it was from? Google.
No, I was raised by wolves. In the words of
Dave,
Muddy Waters.
That's what might have been happening. But
It's more like out come the bloody wolves.
Yeah. You
Turn it
bamboozled
into a
everybody
werewolf,
with your
you must.
bollocks.
I will wear pants next time. I do apologize.
Literally.
Well, there we are. Pete Evans. I'm with Dave on this one.
Yes.
There we are, Pete. There we are. That's a good one this week, Dave. Got people
Well
talking.
done. Well done, Dave.
Cool.
Yeah.
Tell me I can go to bed now. Bye.
No.
Well done, bud.
Should we do another crow wheel?
Yes, let's do another crow wheel. This one is going to be for a hip flask. So one lucky crow family for hip flask. Here we go.
Where's it gonna go? Who's it?
Deborah Haddock. Congratulations, Deborah Haddock. You have won a hip flask.
Deb.
It will be empty. It's up to you to fill it.
One of
Fill
those
it with tea.
stunning piece of merch, that is. Stunning. Oof. Gorgeous.
Get in touch, Deborah. Send us your address and we'll send that out to you. Bloody great.
Let's have a question in Lloyd.
This one's from Kieran Evans. Guys, what was your taste in music growing up and now? I was into all hair metal growing up, bands like Motley Crue, Skid Row, Cinderella, and yes, I got to see the Little Angels in Cardiff. Now I tend to listen to loads of older bands like Zeppelin, Rush, Bad Company, and of course newer bands like the CROWS. How has your music changed? I think when I first got into music, it was kind of like I kind of got into stuff which my parents used to like. They'd be into, like the Beautiful South. They took me to watch Bon Jovi when I was 9. But then as I started turning into a teenager, I started skating, and you kind of get influenced by like kind of what you're into at the same time as well. So I started listening to a lot of sort of like pop punk bands like Newfound Glory. But at that time, you had like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, the PlayStation games, which they were rammed full of like music, like bands like Phoenix TX, Goldfinger. So you were
Suicidal
always,
tendencies.
yeah. Do you know what I mean? You were inundated by all this sort of music. So there was always something there which you'd find you'd like. So yeah, that was kind of a big part of growing up for me. And then like Blink-182, and then you just kind of turn a corner, and then I discovered Aerosmith, and never looked back. So yeah, I kind of still love all the bands I used to listen to, but I think you appreciate the bit more musicianship as you get a bit older as well. I mean, you start like nothing wrong about singing songs about 16 and having your first girlfriend. I mean, it all has its place in time. It's just as you get a bit older, you kind of want a bit more as well, and more life experience, and you want to relate to songs and melodies a bit more. You know, I might be talking a load of bollocks, but that's what worked for me. You know.
Not that bad.
Anyone else?
How about you, Dave?
I grew up. My mum was a big Beatles fan. She grew up on the Beatles. Discovered Queen, Bob Marley, kind of that kind of stuff. Got really into like hip hop and drum and bass as a sort of 10-year-old. Sort of discovering Snoop Doggy Dogg, Ronnie Size, that type of thing. Then obviously Nirvana got me into the rock thing. Then the alternative rock thing when I started discovering like punk bands, skate punk bands, the California punk bands, thrash metal, and then obviously classic rock and stuff when I was a student in university. Really into like psychedelic stuff, like 60s sort of psychedelic stuff, like and Cream and Hendrix, that kind of stuff, the sort of 60s sort of stuff. And then got a little bit hippie-ish for a while. Sort of listen to that kind of stuff. But yeah, I like now, I think if I put some music on, it's like I really like I back into like my proper old school punk, like some death metal, or classical music. I listen to a lot of classical music, which my mum listened to classical music when I was a kid. So it's just everything, really. I don't know. I haven't really got a, I don't know. I listen to anything. I just like a song. The song's good.
What about you, Shane?
First one was grunge, and then went from grunge into punk. No, these days I prefer the more heavier stuff, like Slipknot, Stone Sour. But I just think that's a progression where I've got to with the more technical guitar playing. So I think that's where that's got to. But generally, a good song's a good song.
Yeah.
There's music genres I don't like. I will fucking name them because they're crap. Dance music can't can't. No, I just can't abide it. The song has got to have verses and choruses, and there's got to be elements of melody in it anyway. Because that's what that's what the human ear wants to hear, is melody.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just music, apart from dance music, of course.
I agree totally, but and just basically echoing what Toby said earlier, I'm more of a songs guy, and Dave just said, more of a song than any particular sort of band. But what a band does is give the attitude, isn't it, and the performance and the execution of what they're trying to put across. And so, I mean, my dad was huge into his country, so songwriters like Johnny Cash, Willie Nelson, Waylon Jennings, Charlie Pride, like the old school stuff. Grew up listening to like their wife left them and left with the dog, and that basic sort of foundation of a song right in about just stupid stuff. But then that went into like Bruce Springsteen and Bob Dylan, songwriters, and then grunge happened, like China said, and that kind of changed everything and the attitude. And but the Beatles were huge for us in school. That's what we kind of in our music lessons. That was our GCSE one. That was the whole curriculum.
Yeah.
So that was incredible. Lloyd just said about Aerosmith, all the big rock bands, AC/DC, the riffs they brought. It's just massive in the library of our sort of our likes in music. But I guess nowadays, like right now being a band, I do feel like I probably listen to more now as I did when I was a kid. Like now I'm looking, I want to be, I don't know, I want to go and find new stuff. So I will listen to stuff like King A10 because that made me feel like, whoa, what is this? And like the technical stuff that Shina said, I will look at it, and I find myself sometimes I'm stuck on a phone on YouTube watching bands or technical stuff, and I'm like, wow, that's blowing my mind, and then that kind of inspires me. So now it's almost evolved into other aspects of what other people are putting out in the world. So it's not just like the bands that we grew up with. I think literally everybody can be inspiring now. Like someone you don't even know across the world who's just mimicking doing their version of a cover. That can inspire you, and then bang, you're in your own studio creating something else. It's a great time for music. But those were the big hitters: grunge, the country stuff, the songwriters. But again, it's song. Song is paramount. It could be anyone doing it. Song. Rono.
I agree with all of you. I grew up in like orchestral pits, so I kind of I had the pleasure of like big bands, like proper 16 to 20 odd plus piece bands, whether they're doing swing. Then obviously there's the panto and the show side of things, which you had the big choruses, which was incredible. And I've talked to Shane many a times about it, the harmonies, the multiple layers of melodies. So you'd have somebody singing a chorus line and you'd have somebody else singing a different melody, and just literally them all interlocking and becoming one song yet again. Just phenomenal. And then touching on what Shane said, when we were in school and we were doing music together, Beatles was part of our exams. So we kind of indulged into like the back catalogue of the Beatles. And I can't think what it was, Shane. It was like our music teacher, like a little bit of classical music as well. Dave used to do something, I want to say, was it?
Vivaldi.
And I always say it to you, it's always stuck in my head, that the melody line of when he said, "Will you go out with me?" "No, I will not." Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
4 Seasons. Yeah, it was how to remember certain things and the hook within the piece of music. Like, and then obviously fast forward, I got into my punk rock grunge come 14, 16, and then went into skate punk, the same as Dave, when I was in my like 20s, and I loved my Pennywise Bad Religion. just everything basically. You know, that's the thing. Music is a journey. I think we can all agree there. Music is a journey,
Yeah.
and I'm still discovering old bands. I mean, I was listening to Mastodon the other day, and I mean like proper listening to Mastodon. So I was going through their repertoire, and that's what I mean. They've been out for years, so it was just kind of trying to see what they were doing, or pick out little parts that I found interesting that could maybe evolve me as a drummer, or as a writer, as a musician. So that's, you know, that's kind of like what I love about music. You can discover a new band tomorrow and you can champion them, and you can think, wow, this is amazing, this is fresh. Might not reinvent the wheel, but what they're doing is like hitting everything for you. Or you look back at music that's been around for years, whether it be, you know, Rush, Black Sabbath, The Police, Bruce Springsteen, just anything, any genre, and you can take something from it. And I don't think there's ever been a year where somebody's not introduced me to new music, like, and that could have been from the 40s, the 80s. There's always something I haven't heard, or a song in particular that I haven't heard before. I love that. I absolutely love that. Like,
Yeah.
Should we have another question, boys?
Yeah,
What were you
Sorry, Ben.
no, I was just going to say harmonies and stuff. I think we were talking about this the other day, Dave, like Jeff Lynne and Yellow and incredible.
Beach
like,
Boys, Beatles did
Oh,
harmonies,
yeah. Eagles.
Eagles.
The Eagles, Fleetwood Mac, boys.
Creedence Clearwater Revival.
Yeah, then you've got Rage Against the Machine, and you've got, do you know what I mean? You can always hit, I'm going to call it light with dark, like, you know, you've got, there's a rabbit hole of dark music, heavy music, and then there's a rabbit hole then of your lighter poetry. It's just incredible, isn't it? It's incredible.
Speaking of a Yellow, the Traveling Wilburys.
Oh, but
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yes.
what a band.
What a super group.
Super group, yeah.
That's a hell of a fucking
Yes.
band, isn't it?
Petty Anderson.
Yeah.
That's just incredible. Jeff Lynne, incredible.
Yeah. Songs again on it, it's songs.
Yeah, when you've got like 5 like amazing songwriters all like
I
mad.
bet there were some bloody arguments, but they mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, cracking.
Tidy. Next question, Lido.
This one's from Carly Backwell. If you could support one 80s rock band back then, who would it be?
Guns N' Roses. I'm getting in there quick.
That's a good one, Shine, yeah. Wow, yeah.
I think that's the ultimate, isn't it?
Yeah. Wow.
I'm going to say Shy I am, because I'm going to fucking put them in their place. Lucky Royal.
Yeah.
Fuck you, Roy.
Yeah. We'd like to support our manager's old band, Shy, so we can, yeah, that'd be brilliant.
Yeah, put him right in his fucking place.
we can
the
have
one,
him.
the one
We can
finger
have
bass
him.
playing.
You watching us? He'd be going tamping, wouldn't he? He'd be like, "Oh, you're fucking, we love you. We love you."
We fucking have you, mate.
Yeah. This is a strange question,
Jackie,
because
look what they're fucking saying about us, Jackie.
as you know, I don't really like the 80s, right? But I've got about a million bands in my head. We got Ozzy Osbourne.
Yeah.
Iron Maiden,
got-
Def Leppard.
Bon
Motley
Jovi.
Crue,
Yeah, I knew Lloyd.
Bon Jovi, Cinderella, Europe.
Look at Shiner, he's looking good. No. None of them were in my head.
Yeah, just my fucking brains again. Da, 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 da. I obviously watched far too much VH1 growing up.
Yeah.
I miss VH1, boys, I'll be honest.
Is it still on? Is this still on? It's not. It's not, is it?
No, I can't find it. Oh, VH1 Classic, that's what it was.
Yeah. And MTV doesn't play music.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think.
I'd probably say Guns N' Roses as well. I can't really think of another one apart from like
Aerosmith.
sort of like thrash bands and stuff, which I don't think we'd fit on that bill. You know what I mean? But yeah,
We'd have a
yeah.
go.
But it's mad though, like you say, like Shane just said, Aerosmith. Like I always look at Aerosmith that they started early 70s, but I always look at them as just that you can never really put them in an era.
Yeah.
Mm.
Oh, can you know?
They've done it all. Like
Yeah, they,
Queen,
yeah.
you can't
Queen,
like
Beatles, like it's quite rare, but there are bands that have done it, like gone through all the decades.
yeah. I mean, like you listen to Motley Crue and you know they're from the 80s.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know that they're an 80s fucking air metal band or whatever you want to call them, fucking spandex band. But then you listen to Aerosmith and it's them, isn't it? You know, they've done it like.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
You know, I think that's why I like them so much as well. You know.
Oof, Metallica.
Songs.
Metallica. Oof. And that would have been when was Ride the Lightning?
85 was it?
That's a
Yeah,
cracking
that
album
was
as
the
well.
Yeah.
That's old Cliff as well. Oh, what a cracking album.
Cliff Boy.
Cliff Boy. Cliff Boy. Have you got one more to send us home, Lloyd?
Yeah, some Shelley Skirrett. Some artists are well known for crazy requests. No brown M&Ms, only white furniture and decor. What's the daftest thing you have requested so far? And what do you intend to ask for when you make it really big? Well, believe it or not, Shelley, the daftest thing we've asked for so far for me is a sandwich.
Don't be ridiculous, Lloyd. You'll never get a sandwich.
Boys, it's just odd to me. You know, the one thing we genuinely do ask for all the time is either a kettle or a spoon.
Yeah. We never get either of them, do we, normally?
Yeah, we never get any of them. They give us tea bags and sugar.
But no milk.
No milk. Or fucking kettle or spoon.
I love that.
Boys, we did, man.
I
On the last tour, don't get me wrong.
no, we haven't. We
started off, but
yeah, we
very
never
consistent,
requested
isn't it?
anything daft, have we? I mean, you know, if we've got like I said, we've got a sandwich each and a kettle there, and you know, like a beer for afterwards or whatever, then we're happy, aren't we? But I think if I going forward, like being like, you know, I think I request loads of like puppies or something, and I just have a wrestle loads of puppies in a room before
to be honest,
a room full of puppies.
I don't know if it's silly, but by the looks of it, we do need it now. Is a paramedic for Dave on tour,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
just in case he has one of his blue lip moments, and if I can dentist
Yeah.
Okay, now.
Generally, just an hospital next door.
Yeah.
Would be good.
I'm personally still at that gig in fuel, getting changed in a toilet and putting my foot in piss. So for me, turning up to a nice, clean area to change now, with some food which has been phenomenal, and we have had some lovely we got some lovely spreads, boys, lovely buffets.
Spreads.
We've been looked after, especially on the point of no return. All the promoters looked after us. You know, you had all the fucking beers you did from all around the world, all your posh fucking flowery beers that you put on the rider, local beers, and yeah, kettles and stuff like that. But I still appreciate that. Like I said to you, that was probably a big moment of the stepping in piss and going, fuck, I'd give anything right now just to have a nice clean area, just to kind of just put some clothes to get ready to go out and do a gig. Like, do you get what I mean? And not have to struggle with your gear back off into a closet, and you're trying to kind of coordinate around the next band who are trying to come on, who have, you know, just fucking. So yeah, now when we're on the road and I see our fresh fruit and our fucking sandwiches and your posh beers with fucking half an acre of Farmer Giles's fucking, you know, fucking crop in there, or fucking
That's what you
donuts,
call it, is it? Is crop.
Yeah, or fucking a can of donuts and pineapple with margarine.
Sounds bloody lovely.
I think fucking hell, we ain't doing bad. Like,
I'm really thankful, man. Like when we've been fortunate enough to play venues where there's a shower, so you get off stage, you can have a nice shower, and it's just that's my highlight. Like, do you know what I mean? It's like, oh, thank you.
I
Do you know what
always
I mean?
think I'm going to have
I
a
love
shower
it.
and I
Just
never bother.
clean yourself, get yourself clean, go sweat off, rather than getting in a van and like we've all done it loads. You travel back for the night and your sweat is sticking to you, and you're like, oh. But I'm just thankful of just starting to get looked after.
Yeah.
With a sandwich.
80 PG tips.
But I got
1 kilogram of sugar, a mug, a spoon, and a kettle, and I'm good.
I'm a dentist.
And a fucking dentist.
Well, I need it after the kilogram of sugar, yeah.
Yeah. We will be asking for some Manuka on the next big runs.
Oh yeah, the old honey.
Because that has become fantastic, especially in the cold. Warm your cockles in the cold months, like, you know.
When you're just saying this is for fucking ages, warm your cockles.
Warm your cockles, and I love a good spread.
Here we are, kids.
That's all, folks. Here we go. So thanks for everybody tuning in. If you can, that's the wrong button. Sorry, boys. I kind of had it for a nice segue then, and I didn't do it. There we go. If you can subscribe, hit the notifications on YouTube, like us on Facebook, share the love, share the CrowCast, tell everybody about it. Don't forget, this was announced. Was it yesterday, boys?
Yeah.
I do believe it was.
Yeah, the score yesterday.
Yeah, yesterday morning, yeah. Tickets are on sale Friday morning.
Yes.
Friday morning. Friday morning. And we've got some new merch. We've got some lovely black t-shirts down in my pocket. White t-shirts. Something for the ladies. Got a hip flask. We got it all going on. So yeah, visit our merch store. Big Cartel / Those Damn Crows.
Big thanks to Toby Jepson for coming on tonight. We had a great chat with him. Really appreciate his time, and hopefully we'll catch up with him soon. But thank you, Toby. Over to you, Shiner.
Oh, what's this?
Wait, look at that.
Wait, well, at least I got 2 new photos. That fucking one is still there.
I'm gonna have that printed off as a canvas, Shane.
He's phasing the photo out here gradually.
That photo's not going anywhere if I know Ronnie Exwood.
You bro.
Yeah. Do you know what? That photo will be on my gravestone.
I fucking love it. Thank you, B. I love that photo. It's brought hours and hours. Honestly, Shine, I know, but I know you too well, but I love it. You give him back. You give him back.
Yeah.
Let me give it something back.
Hey, 2 meters, motherfucker.
Yeah. Well, speaking of giving back, so my line is, you know when you're on the right track when you're disinterested in looking back.
Boom.
Yes.
Boom. I think that's my favorite one so far, bro.
Yeah.
Did I beat Toby? But did I beat Toby?
I think you might have
Yeah.
actually.
I do Tobes, I do.
That is a good one, yeah.
Thank you, guys. See you next week. Well, I'll see you tomorrow. I'll speak to you tomorrow. Thank you, CrowFamily.
You gentlemen.
And see you soon.